the beginning of all the COVID stuff. Not exactly sure why.
Huh.
But then we had two guys go out on like COVID related stuff. Kind of one guy, he's a little bit older. He's had some heart issues in the past. He's like, look, and he's a service guy. So he's like, look, I'm really not comfortable going into people's houses and stuff. I'm really not, I'd just rather just take off. So he's taken off, up until he's coming back Monday. He's ready to come back now. And then another guy, I guess, I think he's this guy's kind of milking it. His wife got called back to work finally. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, well, now my wife is called back to work and we don't have any childcare for my kids. So I got to take off now. And I guess they're doing that family act, that CARES Act or whatever it's called for COVID. So if you don't have childcare, you can take off work. Now, we could fight him on it if we really wanted to and say, look, you're considered an essential worker, which means you can get childcare for your kid. That taken off because you don't have childcare is for like non-essential workers or whatever. So anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not fighting with them about it. We just said, whatever, take off, So we're short 2 people. Well, actually, we're short 3 people. And we just hired a new guy, but it's like his very first week. So you kind of can't just fucking throw him out there on his own. Like, yeah, no, you just started, but good luck. Just start working on people's air conditioners. We don't fucking know you from Adam. Yeah, well, we don't want to do that. So just and by Monday we'll be fine. Like say the one guy's coming back Monday. The new guy will get a whole week of training. And he's a new guy, but he's got 15 years experience. So it's not like he needs training and stuff. He just needs to know kind of how our company does stuff, how we deal with people and the approach and all that stuff. So he'll be fine. Like within a week, he'll be fine. And then in like 2 weeks, once we get past the beginning of summer and the beginning of everyone turning their shit on, it'll get slow again,
Gotcha.
Which is the way it does the same thing in the heating season. Like the very first, like really cold weather where people like finally start turning their heaters on and running their heaters, we'll get real busy for like a week, and then it'll calm back down. But it's fucking beautiful out there today. It's nice. I was out this morning already. So
I had to figure out what the hell did you get up for and go outside?
So we're building a bunny hutch because we have these 2 bunnies that have been living in the house, and Sophie's sick of having them in her bedroom, so she wants to get them outside. So
are they all right in the winter?
Everything else. What's that?
Are they okay in the winter?
Like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I mean, that's what we build, like a pen with like a little bunny house, and I don't know if we'll have to insulate it or heat it in the winter, but
gotcha.
Who knows? Who knows? So, I got suckered into this.
We talked about chickens at one point, and there was, I heard at some point that some people bring their chickens inside in the winter. I was like, really? People bring chickens inside the goddamn house?
Yeah. So I've never heard of bringing them inside other than just this week. Some people at work were telling me one of our oil truck drivers has chickens and they are in their fucking house.
Wow.
I was like, they smell so terrible. Like that has to be fucking gross having chickens in your house.
Do they use a litter box or?
I don't know. I've never heard of. I've known all kinds of people that have chickens, and I have known none that have them in their house.
So weird.
Yeah. I mean, the kids' school, they have a bunch of chickens, and they all live outside all winter. They have they stay outside. I don't know. I mean, they have a big chicken coop and all kinds of stuff like that, but they don't go inside or not in someone's house. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a normal thing all the time, but that was one of the questions I asked them. Like, do they just live outside in these pens in the winter? And, apparently they do, except if it's super cold, they might not, or you might need to heat the area they live in, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah, get a heat lamp, throw it out there. As long as you keep them from getting down to like -10, probably.
Damn, I thought I had other stuff to for the podcast, but I guess not. I guess there's nothing.
No good comments about recovery, recovery Dharma.
No, so it was just like an overall positive reaction to learning about it. It wasn't really I thought there were specific things that people said. I try to write it down when they say it, that way I don't forget. And then when I don't write it down, like this week, I have to go back and try to, figure out if somebody said something about it or not. And I can't. But whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're supposed to talk about cliches.
Yeah, they were talking about possible. Well, they threw out a email message about if to see who's interested in playing baseball if they start baseball up. So.
Oh, and they did that?
No, this was for Little League.
Oh, I didn't. My wife's got all the access to every email. I don't know why I am never on that, but it's really like ass backwards too, because generally I'm the person who's more on top of things like that. And so she has the email for school and for little leagues. And I'm like, why? Why did you not let me do this?
Right. Yeah, you seem like the organizer.
Yes, it blows my mind why she is in control of those things, but whatever. Oh, great. Now I got to figure out where the hell I made this. Oh, I know where I made it. Made it in our Google Drive. That's where I did it. Ooh, do we want to do cliches or acronyms?
I'm trying to think of what acronyms. Isn't that
like fear, fuck
letters
everything,
that,
and
oh
run.
yeah. Letters that make words or whatever. Yeah.
I apparently have lists of both of them because I wasn't sure which one we would want to do first.
Yeah, probably the cliches would be more interesting.
Okay. So I don't know how many of these we will. Actually, there's not that many. Oh, no. Okay. It's just loading. Yeah, I don't know how many we'll get through. There's 6 pages of them.
You have 6 pages of.
Yeah, I mean, they're, double spaced. So still, it's quite a few. I don't know. What are you thinking with them? I was thinking we'll say them and then, each have a say or debate about whether they're useful or stupid or really make any sense or not, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's good. I have a small list here, but it's not 6 pages. That's what I was looking for too. I was like, I know I made a list it somewhere, but it ain't 6 pages, that's for sure.
It did seem like people really enjoyed hearing about recovery Dharma, and I don't know why that is. Unless it's just something different or what. But I
think it is. I mean, I only heard about it because of Voices and Jen. I never knew about it before that. Right. She drugged me to a meeting because she's like, yeah, we're supporting this thing, Recovery Dharma. It's a recovery thing. I'm like, it's going to be weird. We went and I was like, that's kind of cool,
Right. Well, and like Jenny said, they have the whole, large community in Baltimore, and I'd never heard of them. And I'm in the recovery community in Baltimore. So I don't know. They must be hiding in plain sight or something. They're not Buddhists, they're ninjas.
Yeah. Well, you're Buddhist. You're not allowed to advertise or promote, everything's got to be humble. And
it's not like they shave their heads and wear them orange robes to make it easy.
They don't do enough humble brags, I guess.
Yeah, I reached out on Twitter and tried to figure out if people, were in different programs and wanted to talk about it. And so far, there's people in a lot of programs. I don't know if we're like looking for specific people in a program or just anybody from a program. I think personality helps if you're going to come
Yeah,
on and
for
talk
sure.
about it. But I don't, I don't
And
know.
someone who's like, and I hate to say articulate, but can explain the program well, like that thinks about it, like.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to find when you're interacting with people online and have never really spoken to them before.
Right, you don't know. Right, it's a
Show up. We'll see what happens.
yeah,
I don't
right.
know. I figure we could try to make the best of it. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
We'll see what happens. So one person did suggest, because we talked about how it was, I think there was the one part in the podcast where, and I left it in where I was like, hey, do you have anything? And you're like, oh, I'm just trying not to make it confusing with 3 people and all that. And they said that they listened to a podcast where 2 guys are on and they interview. And what they do is one guy interviews. And so they'll come on and they'll do a quick introduction together. Then they'll have the pre-recorded kind of interview and they'll play it. And then, both of them have obviously listened to it. And so then they come on at the end and both of them talk about the interview together. And so it's not like a 3-person, but I was trying to think of that and I'm like, I don't know. I kind of liked that. I like that idea, but I also liked that we were all kind of there on the Sunday morning and it gave room for interjection. I know you didn't interject a lot, but there were a couple times when it was relevant or.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and listen to it, but I got feedback from 2 people that I know listened to it that both really said it was good and they liked it, was interested. And like I say, I just didn't want to be 3 of us talking over each other the whole time and all that. And I figured, I knew you would ask, you probably had a lot of similar, questions to what I had, and eventually she would answer most of them anyway. So I'm okay with not talking so much.
She was fun. I messaged her and thanked her for coming on, and I was like, man, we got to find another reason to have Jenny on. That was
yeah, yeah, she's a trip.
So I don't know what else is going on in your world, man. Any more thoughts about anything that aren't too controversial?
No, we're back to having the home group. So
Are you?
we're back on. I know there's a couple other meetings starting to open back up in person. And, I guess things are starting to get back to normal. I guess you'd call it normal.
It's weird. So I saw like there was a group or 2 around here that were saying they were going to be open from now on. Like one was just opening, I think Friday night or something like that. I don't even know if that was around here. That might have been near Baltimore. But then it was like most of them were small groups. They were like, hey, look, we've got this laid out. We can sit in groups of 10. There's enough room to space out 6 feet. We've got enough room to do that 4 times so we can hold up to 40 people, blah, 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 blah. And then there was like other groups who were like, yeah, man, we're open. And people were commenting like, oh, well, what are you? And they're like, oh, they're packed. They're just fucking jam packed in there and they're not taking any precautions. And it's like,
and yeah, so I read a Facebook post, and again, I never know how true any of this is. And in our case, it ended up not mattering, but we're such a small group. But I read a Facebook post that said the way in Maryland, and again, this is from nobody who fucking I think has any authority, but they had said NA and AA meetings are allowed, 12-step recovery meetings are, I guess, allowed to start back up or whatever. And that if you're in a church facility, you're allowed to have up to 50% capacity because that's what church facilities are allowed to have. But if you're in like a public meeting hall or a other public space, you're supposed to keep it to 10 or less.
oh yeah, that makes total sense because God protects you in the church from
Yeah.
getting coronavirus.
Well, and I thought of it as, oh, what that is all the Christians been freaking out because they haven't been able to have church services and get-togethers. So, the political fucking movement, they need that vote. Definitely the Republicans too. They need that Christian vote. So they're gonna cave a little bit to the Christians and give them a bone so that they can have church services on Sunday. And just out of coincidence, since we meet at church places, we get that luxury. You know.
I don't know.
And again, I don't know how true that is.
Right.
That's just what somebody posted on Facebook, said this is how meetings are supposed to work now.
Was this recently, like yesterday?
Yeah, just this week. Within the last couple of days. Yeah, it wasn't yesterday, but within the last couple of days.
It just changed. I think we went into like another level of it Friday
Yeah,
night.
well, I think it was as of Friday at 5 as part of this new whatever finishing of phase 1 or expansion of phase 1, whatever they called it.
Right. I'm slowly getting on board with the idea that I'm going to do something. I'm not ready for life yet, I don't think, but I've done a couple more things than I normally do this past week. And there's a few things on the agenda this week that involve, going places, even if that's just going in to grab the bags of dinner and come back out. Like I'm not doing anything where I'm really around people for any amount of time. But I think there's steps to going back out into the world. I would say at this point, I don't think spending time with people indoors is probably a very good idea. But I would probably meet up with people outdoors and stay, socially distanced from them and have conversations in small groups. I could see that. I could see sitting around a bonfire if we're spaced out being pretty safe.
Yeah. My home group, again, just weather-wise, ended up meeting outside again. It was just Thursday was nice weather. It wasn't cold. It was, it had stopped raining. So we just met outside again. And we were, I think, right at 10 people. I don't think we were over 10 this week, but we were all outside, spaced out. Generally, no hugging. There was like 1 or 2 hugs, but it wasn't like everybody was just hugging away. And but yeah, so it ended. And there's still, same in the home group. There's still a couple of people that are like, at the meetings because they really want to be there, but still pretty on, I don't know, on par with the social distancing. I think most of us, it's kind of where I fall, but I won't like the one guy, comes up and tries to hug everybody. And there's a couple of people that are like, no, fuck no, back up, and me, I'm just like, nah, I don't really care, but I'm not running around hugging everybody that doesn't want to be hugged or trying to hug. I don't try to hug anybody,
Right.
just because it's fucking not safe.
I don't know. I'm trying to like picture what's the most risky behavior to get this. And I guess hugging doesn't stand out to me. Like,
Yeah.
do you pass some germs hugging? Yeah, but generally not in the way that you're going to get this ingested. Like, I'm not kissing people. I'm hugging them.
Right.
My face is away from theirs.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And, like I say, we've still all met outside and generally people stay, I don't know, specifically 6 feet, but, there's distance. Nobody's fucking jammed right on top of each other, inside a confined space or anything. So.
And I think it's like the water droplets inside rooms and houses where there's like not much ventilation. And look, I don't completely know this, but from the things I've read about being outside and it just being a free flowing breeze and like, I think outside seems pretty safe in small groups. I really do. And I'm not entirely against that. Now, you talk about my old home group, like, I feel like it would be too many people. I really do. I don't know that. I don't go down there. I don't know how many people it is, but I just.
Oh, and I'd bet money they're all hugging and everything else.
Right.
Since they're all in the recovery houses and shit, young, and they don't give a fuck.
Young people definitely do not care at all.
What's that?
Young people don't care at all.
Oh, no. Mm-mm. Yeah, you see those big parties and all that shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't get it. I'm still looking at Disney World, man. My eyes are always on Disney World.
Yeah.
I'm judging the seriousness by Disney World for sure. I think they're going to open in July.
But it is like, and I still notice this about myself, and I notice it about a couple people in my home group that were the ones, because we still have a couple members of our home group members that haven't come. They're not, I don't know if they aren't coming back or when they're coming back. I'll probably reach out to 1 or 2 of them this week and say, hey, what's going on? Because now we're not meeting online and you're not even coming to the fucking home group. So what are you doing now?
Right.
Because, well, like Brandon, for example, like he was doing the online meeting every week or almost every week. And then we said we were meeting on, back at the place, and he hasn't been there the last 2 weeks. So probably reach out to him, see what he's doing. So not everybody's coming back to the in-person meetings. But anyway, so what I was going to say is, it's interesting. Me and a couple of the other guys are like, even though you do, like, we do this every week online, and I still feel like I haven't fucking seen you in forever. Like, it's been too long, and I don't feel like the same personal connection as when we're meeting up or going to. It's just, for me personally, it's a different kind of thing, and I don't know what it is about that, But I've noticed other people in the home group that are going to the meeting said the same thing. They're like, man, I know we did some online meetings, but it feels like I haven't seen any of you guys in fucking months. And, it's like, yeah, it's because we haven't. We've online, but that just doesn't feel the same. So whether it's a generational thing or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It is interesting. I've heard people express that. I don't know if I feel that or not. I'm trying to picture like what would feel different in person with people. And I'm picturing like, okay, say we wanted to hit the Tuesday night up in PA, and you'd come, you'd probably pick me up, I'd hop in your truck. Would that feel different? And it's almost like for me, the part of in person that really feels different is like the hug. Like the hug is what feels different, and we can't do that. And that's awkward.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know.
Hey, can't people do it?
Yeah, they do. Crazy asses.
Yeah. And like at work, we had the one lady who's not in the office, and she said she'd be willing to come back, but she thinks everybody in the office would need to be wearing masks. And like everyone else in the office is like, fuck that, I'm not wearing a mask. Like, we've all been working here, and we don't sit, again, our desks are all pretty spaced out. It's not like we sit close to each other. I mean, we're all in the same big room, but I think we're all easily 6 feet apart, if not more. And, I don't know. We were just like, we're not wearing fucking masks. Like, that's just weird. Like, try to work in an office, answering phones and talking to people with a mask on.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm thinking about wearing a mask after all. Like, I don't know when the after this is to stop wearing the mask, really.
That's true.
Like, I'm picturing, even say I go back to an in-person meeting in August, I might have a mask on the whole time. Like,
right.
I really don't know how that looks.
Well, no one at the meeting's wearing a mask, and only because I think of, I don't know what you want to call it, feeling awkward because they were the only one wearing a mask. Like Jimmy, my boss, he had a mask on like the first meeting that he came to. He was the only one kind of wearing it. And I mean, someone might have said something to him. I didn't hear anybody overly picking on him, but I think he just started to feel weird that there's 9 other people and nobody's wearing a mask. And then he was just finally took it off. And then last week he didn't wear it at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to give a fuck.
Like reverse peer pressure, you're peer pressure people into doing dangerous shit.
Yeah, I'm not going to care.
Like that as a fucking wuss.
Right? Yeah, don't bother me at all. I'll wuss it up with my mask on. I'm happy.
But no, other than that, I mean, other than the, like, say, back to in-person meetings, more of them seem to be popping up and that stuff. And then, of course, and this, I don't know that it's anything we would talk about, although Jen says, yeah, you should, but like, I don't know. So she was saying, I guess there's some guy who does a lot of the peer recovery stuff, I think in Baltimore, I think she said. Anyway, he's making the whole, like, the racial violence thing, the racial thing that happened in Minnesota, that should be like some sort of, in some way, that should be like people in recovery should be outraged for some reason. And so I was trying to just connect, like, I'm like, as an individual, I feel like that's, like, that's a terrible thing that happened. That was definitely, a fucking murder. These cops should be charged and all that stuff. But I don't understand what that has to do with recovery, other than he's a black guy. I mean, which there's a lot of black people in recovery, but I don't know. I didn't understand his association. And I guess she was trying to explain it to me now. I guess within this, recovery movement, there's a lot of basically what I'll call like the social justice warriors. Like it's not in their minds, it's not just about recovery. This is a whole social justice movement, and recovery is just a part of it. Whereas to me, I was telling her, I'm like, I don't know. I was like, as voices in a recovery organization, like I think you should be trying to keep like ultra focused on recovery and not get pulled off into some of these other social justice issues, because that can sort of, it's almost like with NA and our primary purpose, you know, it's like you want to keep your focus on what you do as an organization, not start stepping out into all these other social justice issues. I mean, yes, they're issues and you could make a nice statement or a post, but as far as like becoming like activist against it, I don't know that that's a wise endeavor. Anyway.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, definitely from an NA standpoint, you know, we have a primary purpose. I think that's the argument people use for trying to enforce NA lingo and the clarity statement is like, hey, we can't lose focus from what our primary purpose is, because then we'll just run amok. But I would think from like a standpoint of people like Voices, this is probably what they deal with every day. Like police harassment, police brutality, you know, being a vulnerable population that nobody gives a shit about so the police can treat them however they want, fighting back against people who don't care about them. Like this is kind of their life story, is this is what they deal with when they try to help people.
Right.
So it probably feels very homely.
That's one of the things I come back to with her, like, you know, growing up and being in this area is that I said, like, the poor white people in fucking Lakeside or Winding Brook or Hollingsworth Manor, like, they would argue that the cops treat them equally as bad as they do in the cities, just because they're poor white people that are fucking drug addicts, and so they have their rights are violated all the time. The cops will roll up in there and stop them all and pat them down, and you know, oh, what are you doing out here loitering? Oh, I know you. You're a troublemaker, and fucking arrest them. Like they just do that shit all the time. And I've always said, I don't know it's as much that it's specifically racist as cops. I think personally just fucking are authoritarian assholes, and they just go to where they know the crime and the drugs are. And in inner cities, that happens to be a lot of black neighborhoods, you know, so that's where they are, because they just want to go fucking crack some heads and get their stats up, and you know, like,
Right.
And they feel like, you know,
I think it's I mean, I think those people have a point, right? It is a police. There's a type of person who becomes a police officer, it seems, and that's part of it, right? And then there's the fact that poor people don't get respected, for sure. But it's almost like levels to it. It's like, okay, well, there's rich white people, then there's poor white people, then there's black people, then there's like black gay people. It's just
yeah, right.
keep working your way down.
Right.
Like the more minority parts you have too, you're the worse off you are.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't even think the entire argument is just against the police. Like what happened is absolutely fucking terrible. But it's just more, I mean, I lived down there and I worked down there. Bless you. In my internship last year.
Can you get the dog? She snuck right in.
Just to see the levels of how we've put people in a position they really can't come out of by themselves, right? I mean, the people with the least amount of money and resources have the most amount of, you know, obstacles in their way to get past. And it just, black people have no chance, dude. I know people argue against that, but I've just watched it. I'm like, okay, so now you got to pay 3% of your check to get it cashed because you can't get a bank account because there's no banks in your neighborhood and you don't have a car. And like, so now the liquor store is the one cashing your check. And oh, great. Now they have a liquor store right by your house that sells, that's your only food market, but it's also got all the shitty, fatty food that's going to kill you 20 years earlier. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and your schools suck, and they have no programs, no, you know, extracurricular stuff, you know. Even if you are highly intelligent or above average intelligence, there's no fucking chess club or, you know, and if there is, it doesn't get any money. It's like not like it's going to get supported or funded in any way.
Right.
You know, your hopes are fucking sports, you know, or drugs like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, here you can buy a car, but your credit sucks, so you got to pay a 28,000% interest rate on it. It's like,
yeah,
it's
and I heard someone talking about that, and it's like you can't look at the anomalies of the people that overcome that and make that like that's the norm. You know,
Oprah made it.
right? There's anomalies of people that come out of that, but the vast majority just get sucked up into that. You know, poverty cycle, poverty. You know, trap.
Yeah, they do.
And like, and I guess that does tie into recovery because, like Jen said, like she's just in her limited experience with like African American communities, like they have seems to be the highest barriers to treatment. You know, access to treatment, access to mental health. You know, those kind of things.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm trying to think of like mental health, like private mental health facilities in inner city Baltimore. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's all places that are like government run or accept Medicaid and Medicare, and
Well, then you wonder about the stigma within the culture too. You know, if you're a young, say, black guy, 16, 17 years old, whatever, start telling them you're going to therapy. You know what I mean? You're going to tell the fucking kids in your neighborhood you're going to therapy, you know, because your dad beats the shit out of you or, you know, got killed by a cop or got sent to jail for the rest of his life. Like, you know,
well, and then
in your neighborhood and tell them you're going to counseling.
And then put on top of that, like every white person you've ever interacted with has been a gatekeeper, keeping you from getting something that you feel like you should have had, or, you know, somebody that's been watching over you to see if you're stealing from their store. Like you've never had a positive interaction with a white person, and now you're gonna what? Go see a white therapist? Like, no.
Well, we have interest. So there was a Black Lives Matter protest yesterday in Elkton, and Jen wanted to go, and I was a bit hesitant. Not, I don't know why. Well, part of it was I don't know that I wanted to be sucked up into any kind of weird, violent confrontations with anyone, cops or anyone really, you know, for that matter. And then I wasn't like, I felt, especially in this community, like, is that some sort of weird cultural appropriation? You got a bunch of white people showing up to the Black Lives Matter protest, or, you know, I don't know. And then I thought, should that matter? You know, should you just stand up for what you think is right and not worry about what you think other people might think about what you're doing, you know, because it's an injustice.
It's tough, but I guess I'd probably side with the last point you made there. I think you just do what you think's right, and I think it's people not standing up that probably continues to perpetuate, or at least assist in perpetuating the problem.
Right.
Like, man, at least I ain't got to deal with that.
Yeah, right. Well, and I try to say to her, like, and I don't know, I would think that, like, for me personally, so let's say a similar issue happened with some kid, even on our block or around the corner, who was some white kid, you know, would I go out and protest the cops or something? I mean, I don't know that I would. Or if a, you know, young white kid playing with a toy gun got shot. Not that I don't, I think it's terrible. I think it's a total injustice. But I was like, I don't know if I would go like protest or demand justice, you know, just like this isn't me. I guess it isn't something I would typically do.
I think it's really different for us too, in the sense that, like, I agree in that one limited situation, I would hope justice happened, but I don't know that I'd run out my door and need to fight for it. But I think it's more of a, I mean, I'm looking at the 400 years of, you know, shit rolling downhill onto black people in every area of their life, and angry about that, and it continuing to be a thing. where like we don't have any point of reference to like make that, you know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah,
have
right.
400 years of some other, you know, color people telling my people we suck and me feeling second class. And I don't know what that's like. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
right.
I might be a little more pissed.
Or just incident after incident after incident of that same,
Yeah.
stuff happening, and then nothing happening to the cops and nothing happening to the judicial system.
Oh my God, dude. The people who say, why can't they protest peacefully and the looting and all that? And then the whole meme with the Colin Kaepernick, they're like, we tried that kneeling every once a week, but nobody liked that shit either.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh yeah, it's I don't know, man. I don't know. I've never actually been to a protest. Maybe I need to change that at some point.
Me neither. I thought about inviting you and seeing if you would go, and then I might go.
I mean, I hold some of the same fears as you. I'd hate to, you know, be a part of anything violent or terrible. I remember learning in a college history class that like people in different situations in their life are capable of doing different things. And when you hear about a lot of these revolutionaries and people who go all out, they generally don't have kids, right? And then when people do start having kids, now they have a responsibility to be alive to take care of their kids, so they can't be quite as bold in their revolutionary acts and things along that line. And I think about that a lot when I think about what am I going to do in my life? Like, would I go to a protest where I could potentially be a part of some violent, you know, thing? Well, you know, I do have kids. Like, that's kind of for the
Yeah.
young people to do that kind of shit.
And see, I think I'm becoming more I don't know what interested would be the right word, but more open to it because my kids are getting a little older now and they're a little more independent. You still have very young kids, whereas I don't.
Right.
Mine are all pretty independent, you know. So they're more self.
Hmm. That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense. You know, they like less need for you, I guess.
But Jen was all mad at us, told us we all sucked because we didn't want to go. I actually, I if so ended up yesterday. I just had a rough morning, and I was like, I don't feel good. I'm laying down taking a nap. I gotta like reset my brain, or else I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. And so I just laid down for a little bit, and it happened to be right about that time. If I was feeling a little better, or was just kind of around doing nothing, I would have probably went. I'd have been scared to death, but I'd have went. Like,
I think a lot of times protests are pretty calm. I think sometimes when you get enough people in a city environment and there's enough energy and anger that things can happen. But I would highly doubt in Elkton, unless the incident originated in Elkton, then there might be some
right.
violence up this way. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just can't picture a violent outburst in Cecil County. It seems, I'm surprised they had a rally. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked.
Me too. I am too.
That's great, though. That's great. I hope it
Yeah,
becomes more of an issue everywhere.
that's progress.
All right. So, what do we have? I will say, even though I'm not completely ready to go out into the world or go back to normal in any way, shape, or form, really, I'm fucking bored. I'm
Yeah.
getting bored.
Yeah.
I am. I had a class start and I'm like doing some schoolwork, and you know, there's like 2 weeks left in my kids' school, and that's winding down, and it's just there's a lot of moments where it's like, hey, what are we gonna do today? Oh, same thing we've done the last 11 weeks. We're gonna, you know, go outside for a walk or a run or do some push-ups.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fucking doing yard work now. That's how bored we are.
For fun.
Yeah. It's like, hey, let's go cut up some sticks for firewood for later. What the hell?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't have the answers. I don't think we're safe, but I don't know exactly. I don't know what to do. You know, I think we're being smart right now. I think the idea is to be smart right now. Look, let's open these things up. Let's do it in a safe way. Is that what people are going to do? Fuck no. People are going to run out and just do what they always do, hug people and, you know, be all on top of each other. I don't think we do moderation as a society. I don't think we do moderation. I think the idea is good. I don't think it's going to work well. Whatever. I'm over it. I'm like, whatever. Everybody just go get it then. Everybody go get it, and I'll just stay home. And then we'll all be done with it. So I don't know. You want to get into this? We're gonna talk about cliches. So let's see. We're gonna start. I got. I created a Facebook page, so I'm gonna mention that.
Thank you. Jen said she had asked me about it. I said I can probably look at it next week. I said we had talked about it at one point, and then she said, "Oh, Jason just did it already." I was like, "Oh shit, that was quick." But
so
yeah,
I was trying to figure out what to do with it, right? Like I didn't know whether to do a page or a group. And so I asked Reddit about it, and I don't know. The group just seemed to be a pain in the ass. Like, they all seem to be a pain, but I don't like the page because apparently Facebook doesn't really put the page stuff out there unless you pay them. But I figured we could have the page, and then from the page, after we post the episode, we can share it. Like I can just share it to my personal page. I don't have to.
She was saying too. Yeah.
And so I don't really care so much about advertising the page itself. It would just be a convenient place to go to share it from.
Right. It's a central place for communication start or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's my goal with it for now. And then maybe if that doesn't work, then we will start it. I don't know how everybody else feels. Apparently other people don't get bothered by this. When people invite me to a page or a group, I'm like, Jesus Christ, another one of these things? Like, I don't really need this shit. Apparently everybody doesn't feel that way, but I do.
No, I don't either. I mean, most of it just depends. If it's someone's business or a friend or somebody that I know, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll like your page. I don't really care. But you get invited to so many groups and shit. It's fucking confusing.
I used to take it so serious. I was like, well, I've never used your product. I don't want to like your page and give the false assumption that it's a good product. Like I'd have to use it first.
Right.
Now I'm like, fuck it. I'll like anything, whatever.
Yeah, right. If you're a friend of mine, I want to support what you're doing.
Right. You can send me a page about your mom's dildo. I'll like whatever. Like it. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to mention the Facebook page. We did get a couple of messages on Instagram. And that was really about it. Just an overall positive reaction. So mention those few things. And then I guess we can pop into cliches.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't think I was on Facebook this whole week.
Really?
Yeah, I've been avoiding it a lot. I mean, occasionally it's like if I'm, sitting on the toilet, I'll scroll through or something. But at work, I haven't had any time.
That's
I don't ever mess with it at home. Yeah. Oh, it is good. It's very good.
Healthy.
Keeps you out of controversy.
I can't. Yeah, I don't. So I don't spend much time on there, but I'm on there at least once or twice a day to flip for like 3 or 4 minutes. And so total, I'm on there less than 15 minutes a day, which sounds great. It's enough to annoy the piss out of me.
Yeah.
Right? I'll see a couple of posts like, yeah, you shouldn't be racist. And then there's always a person commenting that's like, but they're looting. And they're like, nobody said anything about looting. Don't be a racist.
Right.
Like, obviously you're the problem. And I'm like, I'm mad already. All right. Okay. Get this straight. Figure out where this goddamn page is at. I don't know how to look at the page link. That's one thing I don't know how to do. Like I don't know where the page copy link address. Maybe that's it. Or maybe I just don't get the link address because that's terrible. Maybe I'll just say to look for the recovery sort of page because that's ugly. What is it doing? Taking so long to load? Uh-oh. All right. You all set?
Yeah, I was just looking. I was going to try to find the page. the recovery sort of page.
So I couldn't put the parentheses on it. I don't know if that changes.
It's not coming up.
Oh
well. I'll find it another time. I don't have the stupid app, so I should probably get the Facebook app. I just refuse to put it on my phone, so.
It's probably useful.
I feel like it's invasive of my privacy.
Living is invasive of my privacy for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Hey, welcome back to Recovery Sort of. I'm Jason. I'm a guy in need of a long-term financial plan.
And I'm Billy. I'm a person in long-term recovery.
And we're here today. We're going to talk about some of the cliches of the programs of recovery. Before we get into that, I did want to mention we now have a Facebook page. We just finally broke down and made that up this week, and I don't know what a Facebook page is really supposed to look like or be. And so whatever, it's a picture and it's called Recovery Sort of. Obviously, we could not use our parentheses. Not that anybody ever uses parentheses anyway when they search for us, but feel free to go on Facebook if you're not already and be on the page. We're going to post the stuff there so that we can share it from there. It just makes it a little more unified for people. And of course, we're always on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, anywhere else you do your social stuff. I think, well, not anywhere, but a lot of places you do your social stuff. And so we wanted to announce that. That's kind of exciting. There's a Facebook page. It's really not that exciting for me, honestly, but it's there and it exists. So whatever. Just a little recap from last week. We did get a message on Instagram from Share, which I say share, it's share.selfhelp. And they're kind of on a mission to like spread the word of recovery, which is awesome. And so they asked us if they could like link to our podcast. They have a, what is it called? Fellowship Friday. Yes, Fellowship Friday. And they expose people, to new fellowships that they may not be familiar with. And so they asked if they could link to our post or our podcast about recovery dharma. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, duh, sure. That's the whole goal, for people to listen. But that was pretty cool. So that felt neat. I was like, damn, did they listen to us? Because I'm on there talking about like putting our logo on people's bras and panties. I'm like, did they listen to this episode before they wanted to link to it? Or I don't know. But that was cool. And then Stephanie, our friend Stephanie, messaged us too. Just she was listening to the episode about politics and in the program and how that looks and all that kind of stuff. And I was telling her that was like my least favorite episode to record ever. But she was just she said that was one of her beefs with the program, that she felt like we talk about these principles, but we talk about them for an hour in the meeting and then it just doesn't seem like they get lived all that often. And I was trying to think about that a little bit. Like, look, I damn well sure don't live this program perfectly, right? I come home, I have some anger from my childhood. My kids don't always get the best side of and patient, loving father that I'd love to be. But I do my best to try to practice these principles in all my affairs, right? It doesn't come out. I'm super angry when I look at some shit on Facebook sometimes, right? When I encounter differing opinions. But most of that stays in my head, right? Most of that stays with, hey, I'm angry, but I really want to pray about this and figure out like why I'm so angry. Why is this my angry reaction? Why can't I be more tolerant of people having other opinions? And so I get why people feel these things, but I do kind of agree with her. There's a lot of people I see on Facebook that they don't look like they're spouting a whole lot of spiritual stuff outside of a meeting. And I'm just like, what kind of program is that?
Yeah, and I think part of it too is, it is a big fellowship made up of a lot of people. And I always kind of say you can find what you're looking for here. And if you're looking for controversy and you're looking for the hypocrisy and you're looking for the guy that comes in and shares great in the meeting and then walks out the door and cheats on his wife, like you can find all that. It's here. That's for sure. There's plenty of that. But there
Shots
are
fired. Shots
yeah,
fired. I feel attacked.
are also really good people who are living quality spiritual lives that are, really doing their best to be the best versions of themselves. And of course, every level in between. I mean, I'm giving the two
Right.
extremes, but if you are just honest about any situation, it doesn't matter if you go to a church, it doesn't matter about, your workplace. Like there's going to be those people everywhere you go that are hypocrites and assholes and, say one thing and do something else. Like those people are part of the world, no matter where you go. And it's not just because you walk through the door of an NA meeting that all of a sudden, the complete nature of people is going to change. But there are very good, spiritually sound, spiritually healthy people within 12-step groups. And if you seek them out, they're not that hard to find.
I think you make a really excellent point there. It kind of just hit me in my soul a little bit and gave me chills that, yeah, these people are everywhere, right? I use things as, I don't want to say harshly an excuse, but sometimes an excuse, a rationalization, a justification, right? I use things as a reason to do what I feel like doing a lot of times instead of the other way around. Instead of doing things because of the reason that I see, I have a feeling of what I want to do, and then I find reasons to fit that. And the truth about it is, like, I can get judgy and say these dudes aren't practicing principles or blah, 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 this isn't love or what. The real deal for me is if I am not up to date on my, spiritual treatment, on my medicine that I do daily, if I don't do this regularly, I am that piece of shit. Like that's what I
Yeah.
know about my life. I'm the jerk.
Yeah.
I'm the guy spouting all kind of opinions and intolerant and hating on people. And so really, since we're talking about cliches today, but for the grace of God, like here I am not being that jerk today. Thank God.
Right. And that stuff goes the other way too. I mean, you think about, what I would say most people or a lot of people complain about Christians is the hypocrisy that you see, what seems to be a lot of the hypocrisy in a lot of Christian churches. But the truth is, I have met some of the most loving, caring, compassionate, helpful people in Christian churches as well. So those people exist too in those places. There's just varying degrees of people. And if you're only looking for one type of person, that's what you'll see, and you'll ignore all the other evidence of what you're not looking for.
Isn't that funny that in 2020 we have to explain that there's good people in church?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's hilarious. What you just said makes me think of that whole Mr. Rogers quote where he talked about like when he was young, his mother said, whenever you see a tragedy in life or in the news or whatever, always look for the helpers. And he said that always stuck with him. And he always found that there were so many amazing people doing great things. Kind of like with the tragedy that's going on now. You hear about, the people of all colors out there helping to clean up after the riots for no good reason except just to be the helpers, right? Or I'm sure there's plenty of other examples of helpers in that situation. That was just one that jumped in my head because I had heard about it and saw a little bit about them cleaning up Minnesota.
Yeah, my wife pointed that out a few years ago. It's like, you gotta you gotta even watch paying attention to like just the news, because they tend to give you a lot of bad information. And it'd be
Mhm.
nice if we had some news or some whatever, some feed maybe through our Facebook that's feeding out like some positive stories or some positive things. And, as much abuse, neglect, and trauma is happening in the world, there are these helpers that you're talking about. There are these counselors and organizations and people that go above and beyond to try to step up and help people that do, wonderful, amazing things. And, it'd be nice if we talked about that stuff a little more in society versus just the tragedy.
I think you might have just given me my next resolution to when find myself thinking that everybody is being a jerk or bad or negative or not practicing spiritual principles, maybe I need to become the helper in that situation then. Maybe that should be my goal from now on. I'll come up with a cliche for that at some point, but not right now. So, generally, really positive feedback from a lot of different places about the Recovery Dharma episode we did last week. People seem to really enjoy learning about a new modality. I think it helps that Jenny is so, bubbly and filled with personality. That was definitely a big assist. But people really liked hearing about it. And so we've reached out and we have some people. There's Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, SAA, Marijuana Anonymous, which I had never even heard of,
I
to be
never heard
honest
of
with
that
you.
one. That's a new
And
one.
so, we haven't figured out exactly how often we're going to do these episodes focusing or spotlighting another recovery modality, but I am definitely super interested in doing more of it. I honestly, just my curiosity factor and learning about different things. Like, I want people on marijuana maintenance. I want everybody in this fucker.
Right.
I want to talk to everybody. How the hell does this shit work?
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's fascinating. And just to tie back into the last point, we're all people kind of on a journey of this recovery thing. And it's not like you can walk off the streets and all of a sudden you're the next Dalai Lama. You know what I mean? Like, it's a process to get there. And some of us takes a little longer, some people can do it a little shorter. But hopefully if we're all just working towards improving ourselves and moving forward, that's what recovery's about.
So there's a cliche I heard when I got here that I don't hear anymore about people who came around and got really holy instantly, right? And they talked about going from the crack house to the convent. I don't ever hear that one anymore.
No, I haven't heard that one.
There was another saying too that was very similar to that, and I can't remember. I can't remember what it was. It was from somewhere to the choir, maybe. I don't know, but it was definitely like the whole idea of you were living like crap on the street, shooting some puddle water, and now eating out of trash cans, and now here you are, and everybody's got to follow the rules and do the right thing, and nobody can sin, and like what? So what we're gonna do today, the big cliches episode. We had this idea. I wonder if I can even. Yeah. Okay. So I made this list December 26th, 2019 was my last edit on this list, and so sometime before Christmas, I made this list about our cliches, and we kind of thought we wanted to do an episode about it, but we weren't really sure when or how or what we wanted to do with it. And we've had some other interesting topics, obviously. And then Stephanie had messaged us a while back and mentioned, doing an episode about that. And it kind of sparked our interest again. And we found ourselves without a topic this week. So it seemed like a perfect topic. So we're going to go through some of the cliches we've heard in the program. And we're going to discuss maybe what they mean, if they need to be clarified. I guess they all could probably use to be clarified. And maybe, I guess if we can, we'll try to tell people who aren't in a program what they could possibly mean in normal life if they don't regularly apply, like in an
Yeah, or
opposite
maybe
way.
why they're useful to people that are addicts.
Yeah, we'll try to figure out a way to explain it. Let's not forget to do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll say if we like them or not, or whether they're useful or not, or because there's plenty that aren't. So I have no idea how many we'll get through. We have a fuck ton of cliches that I have gathered. I'm really hoping that after we put these out, people like bring their best cliches to us and we get more, because I
Yeah,
want
give us
to be
some
like,
new ones.
Yeah, I want never-ending cliches.
And I'm sure since a lot of your meeting experience was down in the city, you've heard a ton more than me being up here in the country. So
I don't know. So I will say, this was probably, God, I don't know, a really good amount of time ago. I was doing some weird Google search for old cliches because I couldn't remember a lot of the ones I used to like, and I don't feel like I hear them as much anymore. And I found this page, and it was all these people commenting like their favorite ones, and it was a great thorough list. And I could not come across that page this time looking for it. I don't know if that website doesn't exist anymore. It was weird. It was like some website where people were all commenting in. And so I drew a lot of these off of websites. I didn't remember all these on my own. I forget most of the cliches that I use. Like, just for today, that's about all I got. So did you want to start with yours? I know you said you had a list too, or do you want to just start where I'm at? And
no, we can get. I mean, if you got a bigger list, you might cover some of mine already. So
okay, so the first one on the list is first things first. What do you think about that shit?
I don't. I mean, immediately, it doesn't sound very helpful. Like, I think, what the hell does that even mean? Like, first things first, you know.
I get it. It makes me think.
I'm trying to apply it in a sentence or apply it in a situation.
So I'm thinking, and maybe more of these than I realized are like obvious cliches. Like we say some obvious shit. Like if you don't pick it up, it won't get in you, right? So I think first things first is one of those very much in line with like keep it simple, stupid. I think it's very much like you're getting way ahead of yourself. You're just, hey, first things first, right? Don't use today. That's the first thing. Then what's next? Okay, well maybe hit a meeting tonight, right? What else? Well, how about have you called somebody from your network? Maybe that's a good idea, right? It's like a slow down and take this one step at a time kind of approach instead of, because I know me, I'll make, I start making lists in the beginning of the morning when the first guy cuts me off going to work in traffic. And then that list just builds throughout the day. It's like, well, the guy cut me off in traffic, and then I had to stop and get gas when I didn't really have time. And then this happened, and then they overcharged me. And it's like, I don't let the list go.
Gotcha.
So maybe
So is first things first, though, isn't that like a normal, like, isn't that a cliche that normal Earth people say too? Or is that really just recovery? I don't know.
Do they? I feel like Earth people should already know that first things come first. I feel like we need extra reminders.
Yeah. We need reminded.
Yeah, you guys need reminders that number orders are for a reason. No, I don't. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I would guess normal people probably use that too. I guess we're not. We don't have a monopoly on all these cliches.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So what do you think? Is it useful?
It seems pretty, like, say, it seems almost obvious. It doesn't seem overly helpful. To me, it just seems pretty obvious.
I'm wondering if we should have had somebody that was relatively new on here with this episode, like somebody with like 4 months, and then we could run some of these by them. And maybe, like, I feel like this is one of them ones with it at 4 months. This would have been like mind blowing. I'd be like, oh shit!
Oh yeah, all these cliches.
First. Damn.
It would seem so impactful. Right. Well, and this is an Earth person saying, I say all the time, my wife hates it. I say, it is what it is. She hates that thing.
Really?
What does that even mean? It doesn't even mean anything. Like, it is what it is. What is that?
It does. It means so much more.
It does to me too. I'm like,
that's on my list.
It's almost like powerless. It's like this. It's reality. It is what it is.
I'm gonna put that. It is what it is. I'm putting it on the bottom of the list. It's probably already on there, but just in case, I definitely want to make sure we cover that because I love that saying. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
All right. So first things first. I guess it's useful. Maybe early on, I'd love to hear feedback. I don't really have a huge opinion about it. It's helpful-ish.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one, this is definitely not one of our sayings. Live and let live. I'm pretty sure that's not something we came up with. I think that's a Earth people
Yeah. And that's another one of those people say, and like a lot of cliches people say. So I tend to not like cliches just in general. So when people say them, I feel like they're easy ways to people for people to sound like they're deep and meaningful. so so a lot of them I don't put a lot of thought in like what they actually mean. So now I'm like, all right, live and let live. Like I guess that means just do what you're doing and let other people do what they're doing. Is that
It
that's all?
does, but this is interesting. So I'm right there with you. I am trying to look at these and like I generally know, okay, yeah, live and let live, let other people be who they are. But I'm looking at it more today and deeper. Like, should we never ever say anything about how others live? Like, if you're a person who thinks that what's going on right now is perfectly fine, like, people are angry and of course they're going to riot against systemic injustice in their community. Should people who believe that looting is wrong just not have any opinion about that and let it be? Or conversely, if you're a person who thinks that looting is terrible, should people who disagree with you just let you have your opinion that it's terrible? And okay, cool, you got your opinion, I got mine, let's move on. I feel like we do a lot of arguing about it.
Yeah. Is that what that means? Live and let live, I guess.
Well, I tend to think of it more with people's actions, but maybe it's more also with people's opinions. Maybe I just need to let people's opinions. All right, cool. I disagree. No
Yeah.
biggie.
Yeah. I mean, it's good advice, I guess. It's good if you can do it.
So hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So hard. Well, okay, yeah, I would say I mean, just for I think that's useful. I think that's good. Live and let live. I just don't know exactly. Is it just letting people live? I've always looked at it as actions, I guess. And I'm kind of weirded out today thinking about it and letting people have their opinions. I guess. I mean, it doesn't really. You can think what you want. You're not hurting me with your opinion.
Yeah. Maybe it's like letting go of that feeling that you need to convince everyone that doesn't agree with you that you're right and that they're wrong. Trying to change everyone's mind. Like, I could just let you have a different opinion that doesn't agree with me or think something different than me. And, I don't have to, what do they call that? Like defend my hill, to the death kind of thing. Like I could
Right.
just let it go. Huh.
I
Which I
like
like
it.
the concept. I like to live that way. That's the way I try to live. So
It's very much in line with the book I'm listening to about anger. It's called The Anger Trap and it talks a lot about not having to force my way onto others and, just being assertive for what works for me and then moving on with life, like not really dwelling on it.
yeah,
All right.
which
I'm gonna
again for early recovery is probably that's probably like a wow, you can do that. Like,
right. These concepts were definitely mind blowing when I got
I've
here
been
for
wasting my whole life trying to convince everyone I'm right.
sure. All right, here's the next one. Let go and let God.
Mm.
What does that mean for you, for a guy who does not
Yeah,
really
I was gonna
know?
say that to me is pointless. It's useless. It's nothing. I mean, again, I'm not a person that feels like there is a God that actually does anything for me. Like there isn't. I don't know. It's kind of like the turning it over. Like people say, "Oh, I got to turn it over to God." Like those are like I don't understand what do you expect to happen when you say that? Like,
So okay, but we did an episode on step 3, and we talked about turning it over. What I don't remember. What do you do when you turn it over then?
so for me, that's an action that puts no what do you call that? Like no expectations on God to do anything. So turning it over means like I'm gonna not act on my uh, what I would call my nature, my self will, and I'm going to act in a spiritual way. So, for example, you know, you're my neighbor and you come vandalize my car. Well, what I want to do is go vandalize your car back, but instead I'm going to practice, acceptance and forgiveness, and maybe go to the cops instead of taking justice into my own hands. Something like that, where I'm going to try to practice a more spiritual way of living versus living what I would call my will. To me, that's what turning it over means. But that doesn't put any expectation that there's like a higher power that's going to have some divine intervention into the situation and fix it for me.
Nobody tell Billy, but I'm going to vandalize his car and see if he turns it over or not.
That doesn't mean I won't be angry. But, I guess this saying is similar, like let go and let God. Like what? I mean, I guess that, like, to me, that almost sounds like, does that mean do nothing? Like,
So
nothing about a situation that's overwhelming to me.
Right. I'm weird. I'm thinking about turning. When I think of turning it over, it's generally I turn over the outcome. Like I do the best I can for the situation and I let the outcome be what it is. It is what it is, right? I don't have to judge it or I don't have to try to control and manipulate to get the outcome I want. I can turn over the outcome to just be whatever happens. That's what I think of when I think of turning it over. For the most part, I don't have to fight against outcomes. Let go and let God. I don't know. I feel like I hear this in turn or along with the other statement of like, what is it? Pray as if God will do all the work, but do all the work as if there is no God or something like that. Like, I feel like there's a cliche or a saying around that. What is it? Like, I don't know. It's something along them lines. It's the idea of like, you have faith as if God's going to do it all for you and you can lay in bed and not move, but do all the work as if God doesn't exist at all. And so it's almost like kind of like, I guess that's a best of both worlds kind of thing where you're putting in as much work as possible, but also living in the belief that, the universe is on your side.
Maybe it is what it is the atheist version of let go and let God.
It is what it
is. So that's why I like that one so much better. I feel like that's better. It is what it is. That's
I always
for atheists.
I equate it is what it is. I wish Jenny was here. I equate that to like a Buddhism thing, right? Because I like to put my judgments of, this is good or this is bad on all these situations in life. And that saying to me is, very Zen. It's not good or bad. Like you're giving it a qualifying good or bad. The situation just is, right? Like your car running out of gas isn't good or it's bad. Your car runs out of gas and it's, negative 40 degrees outside and you're stuck on a highway 50 miles away from home and freezing. Car breaking down is bad, right? Car breaks down and a girl stops to help you or, let you use her phone and she changes your tire and you end up marrying her and being married for 30 years and being happy. Now your car breaking down was good. So like basically the car breaking down was neither good nor bad. And so I look at it is what it is as one of those, the car was broken down. That's it, right? It's not good. It's not bad. Any value I give to it is my own shit. And so that's what I've always thought of that as like a very Buddhist Zen, like it is what it is. It has no value on its own.
Huh, yeah, that's true. Now I'm trying to think of when I apply that. Now I got to think of situations where I would use that saying. That's what I was trying to do with the let go and let God. I'm like trying to think of situations where I've heard people say that, and what I usually think is like, of course, in meetings, and I think typically when I hear it, it's like when there's some sort of tragedy or some bad thing has happened, and people say, oh, I just got to let go and let God, maybe the death of a family member or something like that.
I was thinking like a job interview. Like somebody being nervous about a job interview or nervous after a job interview about whether they'll get the job or not. And say, hey, just let go and let God, right? If you're meant to have it, you will.
Oh, that's
It is
terrible.
what it is.
Yeah. See, but and that, I guess, again, back to the atheist twist on that. So that makes it feel like, oh, well, if God thinks you're worthy of this job, you'll get it. But if God thinks you're not going to get it.
No. If God thinks this job is worthy of you, you'll get it. And if not, he won't give you this crappy job. He'll save you for a better one.
And if you still have to stay unemployed for another 6 months, guess that's just God's will.
Yep.
Oh, gosh, that's terrible.
All right. So there's
not a fan of that one.
I mean, I'll say this, and I'm not against the let go and let God concept. I'm not a huge fan of that one either, honestly. So, well, fuck that cliche. We can get rid of that one. Strike it from the
I feel
books.
like as individuals in recovery, we really need to, like, I don't know, I hate to sound too whatever, rah-rah, but like we gotta own our power. You know what I mean? Like we gotta take some responsibility and step up in our lives and not just, poo-poo things to be like, well, I tried and it must not be in God's time and all that stuff. I mean, whether true or not, it's not fucking helpful. What's helpful is, all right, I got to get back up and try again. I got to keep going. I got to do the next right thing. I got to keep moving forward. I can't sort of get wishy-washy on myself. I got to try to take as much power of my life as I can.
See, and that's interesting because I have never looked at like the God stuff as disempowering. I've always thought of it as empowering. It's kind of like, hey, because I believe in not so much fate and destiny. I hate those words, but in fate and destiny, honestly, like I wasn't meant to have this job, and I can trust in that and have faith that this wasn't the one meant for me, and that one will be meant for me, and I'm just going to keep on trucking with it, right? Like it doesn't feel like, hey, it's time to shut down and go lay in my bed for 2 years because I didn't get the job. It's like, nope, okay, that one wasn't the one I was supposed to get. I'm going to trust in that power that's going to guide me to the right one, and I'm going to keep doing the work, and then that power is going to come through in the end one of these times when it's supposed to. Like, I don't know. It's so interesting to see the different, one seems disempowering and to the other it seems very empowering. I think that's kind of back to that whole pray like you don't have to do any work, but do the work like God doesn't exist kind of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Time takes time. Oh, Jesus. First things first, time takes time.
Yeah. I've never actually heard that I don't know that I mean, of course I have to think about it now. I'm not familiar with that.
I've heard there's no substitute for time. I think I have heard time takes time. I think it's like I tend to want things in an instant gratification way. I don't know if that's a human trait or a us trait. I think it's a human trait mostly, but we probably blow it out of proportion, right? Like I want to retire with all my retirement benefits yesterday. On the first day I worked.
Especially now, we're on like a fast food existence nowadays. I mean, you order shit from Amazon, you expect it at your house the next day.
So I will say this.
Front door.
I will say this. I normally don't live like that, but I did order something Thursday. Or no, what was yesterday? Saturday? I ordered something Friday, and it was like 3 different things. And after I was done the order, I don't even think about when they're getting delivered. I'm like, I just want it. It'll get here when it gets here. And then right after I hit the order button, it was like, these packages will be delivered tomorrow. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I've had it say that before and not be tomorrow, right? So I was like, yeah, whatever. The next morning, not even 24 hours after I ordered this shit, I got a notification on my phone, and there was a picture of my goddamn porch, which was creepy, by the way. Just somebody took a picture of my porch, but they were out there. I was like, holy shit, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know. That's wild shit to me.
I do a ton of ordering stuff for work, like parts and supplies and things like that. And we do a lot of online ordering, and it's I can order. There's certain places I can order stuff from at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll be at our office delivered by like 10 o'clock the next morning.
That's incredible.
Without paying any extra shipping. Like it's not even extra shipping or anything. And nowadays, like if I go to order something and it's like a Monday and they say this will be here Friday, I'm like, what the fuck? And I start looking other places to see who's going to get it to me sooner. Like, it's just that's what I'm used to now.
That's funny. So time takes time. I think this is crucial for the instant gratification world that I lived in. Like when I got here, I had 10 days clean and was wondering why my family couldn't forgive me and give me a house key when I had just spent, the last 7, 8, 9 years, like wrecking their life, stealing from them, being a menace to society. And now I don't understand why people won't hire me and give me, I'm a good, productive member of society now, damn it, with my 10 days clean. Like, and I needed to be reminded that, hey, there's no substitute for time, right? People over time, if you just continue doing the next right thing, they will trust you again. And if you just show up for work day after day after day, hopefully they'll recognize that and give you a raise. And, if you don't feel very good after a breakup, if you just sit still long enough, that will feel better. Like you can't speed up this process. You can't bypass time.
Yeah, it's a poetic saying. It sounds really nice. I like it. Say, I'm trying. I've never heard it, so
it's another. It's a first things first. It's a not really profound, but if you don't pick it up, it won't get in you.
Sounds poetic though.
Time takes time.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one of well, I won't say one of our favorites, but so the other fellowship that we always like to talk about, they say one day at a time. And that's where we're at now, one day at a time. And I feel like we struggled so hard to not take this with us when we left them. And we're just for today. That's what we'll say instead of one day at a time. I don't think you can avoid one day at a time. It's almost like too cliche to not bring with you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just for today, I guess I'm just so much more used to hearing that because that's what they use in Narcotics Anonymous. But I think that's incredibly helpful and useful. And I hate hearing these sometimes. Like I hate the fact that they get said so much, but it is really true. I deal with today, I deal with what's in front of me, I do the best that I can, and maybe make some plans for later, but I can't live next week or next month or next year. I gotta, be, it only really matters what I'm doing today.
Right. This helped me immensely when I first got here. The idea that I couldn't use ever again was too much for me. Like that just my entire life had been using, and I was willing to entertain the idea of not using right now, but forever. I don't know about all that, right? And so I needed this.
Now I'm like, fuck. Who knows? 3 years from now, I could have terminal cancer and decide, fuck it, and I'm eating mushrooms out in the woods somewhere. Who the fuck knows?
Right.
I ain't doing that today, though. Today.
Yeah, I think the psychedelics do, still entertain my brain from once in a while too. I'm like, maybe one day I could, but yeah, I needed this in a grand sense back then. But yeah, I think I need this saying as a reminder regularly now too. I think you're right. It's not, I can't do, this upcoming difficult task today. And so what am I going to do? Spend my whole day worried about it and angry about it? Like, I can't fix some situation I acted terribly in 3 weeks ago. So, I really need to live in today. That's the only place I can affect any change in my life and be anything different, right? And so the whole one day at a time, like, it's so true. And just for today, I guess they're kind of like the same saying. I don't have to do. I don't know. I think they're a little different, honestly. I think just for today might be saying more kind of what you
Staying,
were just talking about. Like
yes,
I just
moment.
stay in the moment, right? But I think one day at a time can help me to like do one little right thing at a time when I break that down, right? Almost like what I've found is when I do something, it doesn't matter really how wrong I live when I get outside of my program and principles, there will come a point where I'm miserable, but the way out of that misery is just a couple next right things. It doesn't take many, right? It's one or two, and then I just start feeling better when I'm taking some positive right action. And so I feel like that's what one day at a time kind of reminds me of is the whole next right thing, which is another cliche all in itself. I feel like you say one cliche and you start saying 14 others.
Right. Right. And then you sound like the next convention speaker when you're
Right.
rattling
Well, that's
87 cliches. Right.
perfect. That's what I'm going for.
And a couple of cuss words in there. Um, yeah, and I guess I tend to use the just for today in that context, which is probably for me why it fits more in place of the one day at a time. It's like I'll use that uh, if I'm trying to like not act out on, let's say, a defective character, or if I'm trying to, not give in to one of them impulsive things, I'll say, all right, just for today, I can just do this just for today, or, one day at a time, I cannot do this thing. That's how I tend to use that probably most often nowadays, whether
Mm.
it's, I'm upset and want to freak out on my kids or leave my wife or quit my job, any of those emotions or feelings that come up in a big way. It's like, all right, I can do this today. I don't know about tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll pack my shit and leave. Maybe tomorrow I'll put in my resignation. But today I can show up and do the next right thing.
No, I think you're spot on with that. I'd say that's exactly how it works for me too. You mentioned two of the situations that do it when my wife and I have an argument and there's just that really intense feeling of like I don't know how to fucking be here with her right this
Right.
minute, right? But I don't know how to be here with her this minute. I live in how the fuck am I going to do this for 30 or 40 more years, right? And just for today brings me back to today. Like I don't have to do this 30 or 40 more years. Like let me just walk away and go do something else for an hour. And the
Yeah.
same with my daughters. They're getting to be, teenagers. And it's like there's times when I'll interact with them and it's so frustrating, as we all know, obviously, to interact with a teenager. And I'm like, how in the fuck am I going to make it through 5 kids at some point in time being teenagers? Like, it just seems overwhelming. And it is overwhelming to do that right now because I can't do that right now. Like,
Yeah.
and so I think the whole just for today, one day at a time can keep me in that moment of, I just got to do this tonight. Like, it won't always feel this way.
Yeah. And most recently I think I've been applying that towards trying to get back into the swing of exercise and like healthy habits. Like, I've been getting up in the morning going out to run and it sucks. I hate getting up early. I hate running. I hate all of it. But I'm like, you know what? I don't have to do this for the rest of my life. It's just, one day at a time. I'll just get up today and worry about today. And, eventually I want to get, to doing a 5K and doing these other things, but I can just do, just do what I need to do today.
I've been running. I don't know why. I hate running too, but apparently now I don't hate running because I actually kind of looked forward to it the other night. I was like, "Ooh, I get to run tomorrow." I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with me?" But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's parts of it I don't completely hate. I'm still kind of in shock because I've never thought of myself as a runner, and the fact that I've run these. I mean, I've run 5 miles now, and I've run 6.2 miles, and I run 3.1 at least twice a week, and it's like, damn, how? Like I remember thinking if I ran a mile, I'd probably have a heart attack.
Yeah. But I would say for this cliche, this is one I like and I use. I probably don't say it a ton, but it definitely is one that I say to myself that I use for myself on a regular basis. And I don't know if I'm doing an injustice to the one day at a time versus the just for today. Because now you got me thinking, are they really the same or are they kind of different? So,
yeah, I don't. That's a good. I don't know. I know the one day at a time is much more popular as a hashtag on social media, so I use it frequently for that.
Oh, see, I don't use that at all.
See, and here's the interesting thing. So honestly, I've always thought of just for today as a really terrible, like, off-brand one day at a time. Like my whole recovery, I'm like, fuck, we got stuck with the shitty one. They got the good one over there, right? They got the Cheerios, we got the fucking O's. But I don't know. Now that I look at it, I don't know. I don't want to say I like it better, but I like it differently. I think they're different a little bit.
And see, for me, this is it is what it is thing. Like it is, I have no. I'm not married to either one. If we said the one more in our fellowship, then I'd fucking probably say that, and I really don't. It's the spirit behind it that's important to me.
I gotcha. So man, we have, we're gonna have like 48 cliche episodes, obviously, because we're like half an hour in and we've hit 5 of them. That's hilarious. Let's take a quick break here and we'll do the voices and then we'll come back. How you feeling so far? Is it going good?
Oh yeah. I do want to re-record that voices thing. I think that every time, like, shit, I got to re-record that at some point.
Oh, the ad?
Yeah.
Why? What's wrong with it?
Change it up. Make it different. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking I at least want to listen to the outro piece and re-record that at some point. I feel like it doesn't say everything anymore because we've changed things, we've added things, we got more social media. Yeah, maybe that's something we can work on at some point, is re-recording those things. I don't know. I think the intro probably holds pretty steady though. Like the intro you have, I don't know if that changes too much. Do you think it just gets boring for people to hear though?
Probably, but I think it's one of those things that, especially in nowadays climate, like most people know that you just got to say shit like that because it's just unfortunately the way of the world. Like, got to put it out there that we're not affiliated with anybody. We're not associated with anything. We're just fucking two guys saying some shit.
Right.
Maybe we'll record it to say that. Nobody's paying us. We're not connected to nothing. We're just two guys talking shit.
I like it. I like it. That's hilarious. But I actually think that is probably like the most professional part of our podcast. I'm like, that sounds great. That's before we talk. I'm like, oh God, if you listen to that, you're gonna think something serious is coming.
Right.
All right, we ready to jump back into this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're back. I did want to make mention. Oh, I meant to say this to you too. We got an email about somebody advertising on our podcast. I was like, really? I think it was like a treatment center in Southern Maryland somewhere. I didn't put much stock into it, honestly, because I was like, why would you want to advertise with us?
Yeah.
Have you listened to me talk about putting our logo on people's underwear? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I don't know, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
So I think some of these cliches, obviously might be from not all from our program, which is maybe why we haven't heard some of them as much. But the next one, I clarify that because the next one is one I don't really hear very often. It sounds like it's from the 60s. Is your program powered by willpower or higher power? Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't heard that one.
We're gonna have to get somebody who's got like 40 years clean to.
Yeah. But just in different regions, they say different stuff. Different regions of the country.
Yeah. That's kind of like soda and pop and Coke.
Yeah.
I guess what would our version of this be? Self will, self will or God's will?
Yeah, probably.
Willpower or higher power? Now, I think it's a little different. I think they're saying willpower is in the sense of, are you trying to stay clean on your willpower alone? Or, are you counting on your higher power to help you stay clean? I think there
Yeah,
was a big emphasis when I
yeah,
got here that willpower was never enough.
yeah. Well, doesn't it say that in one of our readings or literature? Willpower alone is never enough. I believe it does somewhere.
Where is that?
Anyway,
Eh,
yeah. I mean, actually, it's not a bad saying. I've just never heard it.
I absolutely despise it, honestly.
Yeah.
I
I don't
mean,
think I ever use it. I just
is your program powered? I just feel like who's gonna like what kind of terrible cartoon voice do you need to say a saying like that? Is your willpower program higher power? Like what the fuck? What? I can't imagine ever saying anything like that. So
no, I would never say
it's great, but scrap it.
it. Yeah. Needs
Uh,
work.
back to the drawing board. Um, cultivate an attitude of gratitude. So I don't know if I've ever heard cultivate, but I've definitely heard, the need for an attitude of gratitude. Obviously, they rhyme, so that makes that a nice little saying.
Yeah. Um, I hate it as a cliche, although I do tend to try to be a person that stays grateful, and this may be on your list. I always tie it back to like the grateful addict I'll never use. That's kind of one that I tell myself. I don't know if it's true, but I tell myself that all the time. So, like, because I think, gratitude and a positive attitude towards your life and just, being grateful for what you have is really a good place to start. It's my fear and self-loathing and uh, depression that like sucks me back into wanting to use.
Yeah, no, I agree. The idea that addiction is a core of self-centeredness and isolation and pity parties and all these type of things definitely are the things that make me want to use something to get outside of myself and not have to sit and wallow in that. Um, I'm just thinking very much, God, I almost think every cliche is going to come back to it is what it is. Um, I'm picturing like an attitude of gratitude, right? And I'm picturing, my belief system, and I know this isn't everybody's, but very much the concept of the yin and yang. There's positive and negative in everything, right? I get to choose which part of that I want to see at any given point in time. Yeah, some things don't seem like they have positives in them, and some things don't seem like they have negatives. I get that, but I don't think it's that simple. That's not my understanding of the world. I think it's all pretty even, right? And again, kind of going back to the whole car breaking down situation, like how an event affects the following events in your life can affect whether you label it good or bad, and your idea of whether it was good or bad can change based on that, right? I remember hearing a friend of mine, Ria, talk about she went for a job, but she didn't get it, and that was bad. But then because she didn't get it, she ended up applying for this other job that was better and got it, which made the first job not getting it good because she never would have applied for the second one. And it was weird. Like the story went back and forth like 6 times about one situation and how she kept relabeling it. And it was like, damn, was it any of that? And so from that, to get back to the point, is like the attitude of gratitude is really looking at the situation and picking out the positives in it, right? Because there are positives and there are negatives. Kind of like with this quarantine, I feel like we were given the option. We could look at all the shit we're missing out on being able to do, and we still can, right? Like, look, I get the feeling that my vacation this summer is probably not going to happen the way I had hoped it would happen, if at all. And that could seem very negative, that way I won't get to go on this fun vacation with my family that I had hoped for. Or I can do my best to pick out the positives out of the things that have happened. My life has slowed down. I haven't had to rush to sporting practices and games all the time. I've had some quality time with my family, doing some different things. I started running. Like, you know, I get to pick whichever I want. And so attitude of gratitude is like a reminder to like, hey, there's positives in this if you want to look for them.
Yeah, and I guess I use it kind of like that, but a little differently in that, like there are going to be bad situations that happen in our life. They're going to come up, bad stuff. Some of them can be pretty minor little things, but in recovery, I've had to deal with some pretty major like losses, major tragedies. And to be able to say, these tragedies happen and they suck. Maybe there isn't a good side to them, but I have things in my life that I can still be grateful for. I still have my recovery and my health. I'm still clean. I'm not using. I still have, friends and family that love and support me. I still have, a home and, food and shelter and things like that. And I can lose perspective on how many people don't have those things in their life. And two, how at times in my life, I didn't give a fuck about any of those things. I didn't care that I had a family that loved and cared about me. All I cared about was getting high. And if you weren't a person that was trying to help me get high, which at that point my family wasn't, then fuck you. I got no time for you. You're useless to me. And not really understanding like what a fucking miracle blessing that is. And how many people don't have that in their life. There are a lot of people out there that, we had an anniversary at my home group the other day, and a guy talked about how like his parents got him high for the first time, and most of the drugs that he ever did for the first time were with his parents. And I'm like, fuck, I can't even begin to understand what that is. I had parents that loved and supported me and tried time and time again to help me and get me into recovery. And I still was resentful at them for some fucking reason I can't figure out, and now it's like, wait a minute, you need to be grateful for that shit. You need to look at those things in your life, and just reinforcing those areas of my life that I have to be grateful for have helped me get through, the loss of my mom, or, when our children, my daughters were abused and stuff like that, because there wasn't good things that, it wasn't like, oh, my daughter's got sexually abused. That's great. There's some positive lining there. No, there really wasn't a fucking positive lining in that situation. But I had really other, I still had things in my life to be grateful for to help carry me through that hardship and that suffering, and it was, just that my family all showing up and being supportive and helping us through it, and, being clean so that I could show up to court and to talk to police, and, that I was a person that could be taken seriously, and that I wasn't some piece of shit who they could just dismiss and say, oh, well, whatever. We don't care about what you have to say because you're a using drug addict, those kind of things. And that, being grateful for where I was in my life, not for that situation, but for the ability to get through it.
Excuse me, I don't want to in any way belittle your pain or your feelings about that situation. I've never been through something like that, and I don't want to try to pretend that I can understand or know what it's like to go through that. And so I want to preface this statement by saying that, because I want you to know that I totally respect how you feel about it and what you went through. I guess.
And feel safe. You don't hurt my feelings, so you're good.
Well,
I trust you, so you're safe.
I know you said there's no positives, and when you brought this up, the whole concept of going through life, a situation where that's tough and there isn't a positive, I kind of had a feeling this was one of the ones you meant. And I guess I look at it, and again, this is much easier from a guy who didn't have to go through it, right? Because I can't imagine how painful it is. But if you were to encounter a guy who used in the meetings and he felt a lot of shame about being a terrible father because he wasn't available to show up for his daughter that got molested, you are now the guy who can help him because you've been through it. And I know that's a shitty ass reason to have a positive for something, but without it, you wouldn't be the guy who could help him, who could, right? And so I don't know what that situation leads to in the future for the benefit of you or your daughter, or how that changes your life or makes you who you are. But I personally, and my belief is that when these tough things happen, there is some positive to it. It might not be something we recognize yet or have the ability to see, but I do think there is some kind of positive.
Yeah. And so I would say, yes, I agree with that, but you're never going to get me to say that I'm grateful that happened. You know what I like?
I got
Yeah, yes. I mean, and luckily for me, I say luckily, I don't know, that's a fucking terrible way to say it, but I know other people have been through those situations. I know other people have had to deal with that stuff, clean, and, have made it through it. So there are positive examples out there. So, I can be grateful for that.
I wonder if some of those people were in like struggle points in their recovery, and then you reaching out to them to talk about that kept them clean that day or something. I don't know, my brain in the universe, but I think we definitely overwhelmingly agree that I don't know why we don't use cliches that often, personally, but attitude of gratitude seems to be a great one.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, like, I don't use it, but I do like it.
Right. So the next one, this almost seems like the opposite words to say the same thing. Misery is optional. Misery is optional. Attitude of gratitude.
I guess it depends on what you mean by misery, but yeah. Because of course, I want to say pain is optional, and I don't agree that pain is optional. But misery, I guess, is a little. I guess I'm using misery as like a prolonged sense of suffering. Is how I would.
Yeah, it kind of goes back, and we might have brought this up on here. Something we read about suffering equals pain times resistance. And so I think this ties very much into that. Like, pain is inevitable, but the suffering part, the misery part, is when we multiply it by trying to resist it, right? By trying to not have it happen. That whole, I can't tolerate it, I'll fight against it until it, that's where the suffering comes in, is the ability to accept it and move forward. We kind of don't have to be miserable about it. It still hurt.
Yeah, and so now I'm going into the optional. So is it optional? So I don't know that we're powerless over misery. There are things that we can try to do. I mean, I guess, okay, so is misery a feeling?
Misery, is it a feeling? It's a state, right? Not really a feeling. It's more of a state. You are miserable. You don't feel, well, I guess you feel miserable. I don't know. I think of it as a state.
Feeling, I tend to think we're powerless over feelings. You know what I mean? And you could take all the right actions and still feel miserable, and I'll just equate this. And this hasn't been my experience personally, but, I know people like have lost a loved one, and they've, really struggled with that, really suffered with that over a long period of time, and tried to get through it. Taking positive actions, but still not finding relief. And so if you're calling that misery, I don't know that that's optional. And I'll just say, like, I think back to my sister lost her son. He was 17. He was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. Guy was high and drunk, and, killed him on the highway. And she went through quite a few years of depression and anxiety. And, she did a lot of positive things. She went to counseling. She started, support groups. She got on medication. But I would if I had to describe her during that time, she seemed pretty miserable for a couple of years, So, and again, it wasn't like I didn't look at it as she was doing nothing about it. She was taking positive action, and now she's better. You know what I mean? Now she's really kind of done some moved, what I would say beyond being miserable, to where obviously she's upset she lost her son, and that still has a heavy impact on her life. But she's been able to deal with it in a healthy way, but it took a lot of time for her.
I can't even imagine. It's one of my biggest for
sure. Yeah.
That's one where I got to remind myself frequently, just for today or one day at a time, like that's not my situation yet, because I can spiral out of control thinking about one of my kids and their personality and how they're definitely going to use, and oh God, where they're going to die. And I can't, it's hard to live with that, even the thought of it.
So I don't think I would have to say I don't agree with misery is optional. I like the sentiment's good. You're not powerless over it, but
So I would say feelings aren't facts, right? I've heard that before. There's another good cliche for you. Yeah. Feelings aren't facts. And then I've also heard that every feeling comes from a thought first. And I've tried to argue this, and I didn't win. So I think depending on how you think about something definitely affects the way you feel about it. If I say, wow, this is going to go somewhere awful, but to a woman who grew up watching her mother, maybe get abused by a jealous husband, she might believe that means that's what love means, right? If you don't get jealous and fight over me, you don't really love me, or something along those lines. Like that thought inspires the feeling that goes underneath of it, basically. Whether it's right or wrong, healthy, unhealthy, it doesn't matter. And so I'm looking at the situation about death. And one of the things I had read before was to a doctor or a nurse, death is failure, right? To a friend or a relative, death is disaster. But to the soul, death is a relief. And so when you look at it that way, like each one of those people is having a different feeling based on the same event, based on how they think, right? So if I'm close to somebody and they die, it's going to hurt me. People die every day that I'm not close to, and I don't think anything of it. And so the way we think, I think, depends on our feelings. And so maybe changing the way we think can change our feeling level of misery.
I guess, but isn't that how cult leaders get so much power? They just put a bunch of bad fucking thoughts in people's heads and get them to feel like they're doing a great thing when really they're crazy people blowing them up because a comet's coming or whatever.
After they drank the Kool-Aid, their misery was optional.
So while I guess, feelings come from thoughts, but it doesn't mean they're good thoughts or healthy thoughts. I mean, they come from really bad thoughts. And so sometimes really bad thoughts can lead to really good feelings, and, vice versa. Really good thoughts can lead to really bad feelings. I mean, I think the fact that that's a truth doesn't really help much. What we need to do is figure out how to connect healthy thinking to healthy feelings.
Well, I guess so. If we go back to the situation of your sister, and I'm not trying to fix your sister, because grief over something that huge can take a long time, and so I don't want to say her misery was optional, but
time takes time.
Time does take time. As long as she was doing first things first, she probably made it through. Maybe her misery came because she was trying to do second things first.
Yeah. She forgot to let go and let God.
Right. So I'm just wondering, like, if there was some way she could have, maybe if there was a different belief system in place inside of her about, looking for the gratitude in situations. I don't know if that helps in that extremely tough situation or not, but it might have shortened the misery.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking when I talked about the I'll say bad thinking. I don't mean this to bash people that believe in afterlife and all that stuff, but there's plenty of people that believe when you die, you go to heaven. It's this great place. There's no suffering. You'll be reunited after death and all that stuff. And so that brings a ton of comfort to that situation, or can, if you really believe that. But is getting someone to believe some stuff that there's no real proof for scientific basis to.
I was waiting to see how that hurt.
Yeah, is that, I mean, hey, we can relieve your suffering by convincing you of some things that sound really nice, that sound really good, sounds really great. You won't feel so bad about this terrible situation if you just believe this line of thinking. Like, okay. So why don't I just convince myself all kinds of dumb shit and make all my feelings go away, you know?
Oof. Yeah, I think you just called believing in heaven dumb shit, but I will.
I didn't mean to link those two. What I mean is I could convince myself that, I'm in an abusive relationship and that physical violence against me is good. It builds up my strength and makes me a stronger person. And so therefore this abusive relationship is good because it makes me stronger. It's like, well, that's a stupid thing to believe. So I wasn't trying to say that Christians are stupid. I'm just saying you can take it that far. You can take it to some place that, you can convince yourself really bad ideas are good for a terrible situation. That bad feeling and that bad, the bad feelings are what's going to motivate the healthy change to get the fuck out of that position.
That's really interesting because I was sitting here thinking, if it's comforting, why not believe in whatever? Like, especially if it has no effect. I was thinking of the heaven thing when you were talking about it, and I'm like, I mean, I can't say I personally believe in the idealistic Christian heaven, but if it's comforting, why the fuck not? Like, sell that to everybody. Yeah, sure, heaven.
I'm kind of jealous of those people. I don't mean this in a sarcastic way, but I wish I could sell myself on some of those things because I think it would be a much easier way to accept a lot of situations. I am just such a cynical bastard that I can't just let go of my overlying need for science and rational reasoning and scientific proof. Like, I wish I could, because it would make some of that stuff way easier to swallow in life.
That's incredible, because our next cliche is don't be a cynical bastard.
Yeah, it should be.
No, so when you were talking about heaven, I'm like, we should sell everybody on this. This is, fuck it, believe in whatever makes it comforting. But then you talked about the whole abusive relationship, and then it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm like, I can't buy that one. So now I don't know what to say.
Hey, I get why religion's so popular. I understand why people, are there. There's a lot of comfort there. There's a lot of what I'll call rationalizations or excuses for misery and a promise of something greater, and that all this suffering and turmoil and things that you're going through now are meaningful and purposeful, and that there's this peace and utopia waiting for you on the other side. I mean, that's a fucking great sell, that's a big sell.
Yeah, I mean, and if you ever look into any podcasts or information, written information, it doesn't matter how you get your information, but information about why people join gangs, why people join religious cults, why people join the Taliban, like, it's all the same kind of reasons. They were they missed out on some kind of love. Their life was pretty miserable. They were oppressed already, and then somebody sold them something that sounded better than that. And so pretty easy to buy in when that's what you're living.
27 right? Isn't that the
what is it?
The 27 virgins? Isn't that what you get for killing yourself if you're Muslim?
I mean, that definitely sounds better than some of the days I've had, and if, my best day with 27 virgins is definitely better than my worst day. I don't even know where I'm going with that. Anyway, the next one on our list. So misery is optional. Unsure. We'll leave that as unsure. God never made no junk. I don't know if you've heard this one. This definitely feels like a urban city saying to me.
Yeah.
What do you think of it? God never made no junk.
I've heard God doesn't make mistakes. I've heard it that way too. Similar. It's meaningless for me because I don't know that I believe that there's a God that makes anything. So
I think that is so crucial to this podcast is that we're both not believers of something. Well, I think we're both believers of something. I just think neither of us are believers of, the Christian version of God. You are pretty much not really a believer explicitly in any kind of God. And I just have this weird, fucking ghost universe phantom God or something. I don't know what the hell it is. But I think that's actually really useful for our conversations. I've talked to some people who listen and say that they appreciate that we're not, just kind of writing things off as like, oh, that one's God. That's took care of that. Like we kind of try to explain it in different ways. More so you really than me. I'm still kind of in the fate and destiny clan.
I've tried for so much of my life to just chalk it off to God. It's that would be so easy.
God never made no junk. So what do you think? So our God, now we're really going to get fucking serious here. Are we just a happy accident? Humans are a happy accident? Just evolution just fucking happened and what the hell? Now we know we're alive? Like, I don't want to debate that.
Yeah, accident. I don't know. Accident. I mean, nature happens. Things evolve and change and grow, and they'll change. In 1,000 years from now, we're not going to look like what we do now. If you look back at people 1,000 years and 5,000 years and 10,000 years ago, we were completely different than what we are now. And another 10,000 years forward will be different. But I guess I would venture to say that cliche could be incredibly helpful. There is a large percentage of population that do believe in creationism, that are Christian, or different faiths. I believe Jewish is also creationism, and Muslim, there's a version of creationism. So, it's very helpful to people that believe that. And I think it's a good saying. It means, nobody's useless. I would just say it in a different way that doesn't involve God. Like, I don't think any life is useless or worthless. And then, I don't know, maybe there's some debate to that. I mean, there's definitely some serial killers out there that some people think their lives would be pretty useless or worthless, but I don't know. I'm not religious, but I think it's a good saying for people that are religious.
If we could just have an attitude of gratitude about the serial killers, we could find
find the silver lining to the guy that killed 37 people.
Yeah, there's got to be some. I mean,
he helped somebody somewhere in his life.
I mean, did some of those 37 maybe they weren't the best people? I don't know. No, I don't. Jeez, now we're getting a little vicious.
Yeah, that was bad.
So I don't use the term creationism for myself because I don't know. The idea of like, poof, the magic human appearance seems a little strange to me. But I like the idea intelligent design, right? Just the concept that the complexity of the human body and any animal body, really, the complexity of all the inner working systems and cells and just how it all works seems way too intelligently designed to be an accident. That's where I come from. I don't know what that means. If that means that like the intelligence was just, hey, I'm going to form it to work this way and let it evolve into whatever, or what. It seems too well worked to be an accident, I guess, is where I come from. So I don't know, but if
just people or all of nature, like
kind of everything seems too intelligently designed. It all fucking works together. It's just works too perfect. I don't know. It just seems like somebody really, really fucking smart had to figure all that out.
Yeah, but what about like the dinosaurs? Like they worked perfectly for a while, and then they didn't anymore, and they went away. And
our time's coming.
something new came because something, so I don't know.
Our time is coming. We will
Yeah.
too go away.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess so. Even in the sense of not believing in God, okay, so God never made no junk. What about nature? You said nature, is the evolutionary path. Like nature never made no junk, right? Like everything seems to have a use and a purpose on Earth, right? The trees give us the air we need back, and the rain system cleanses water, and like all these different things seem to work perfectly. And so we can extend that whole natural evolution concept to people too. Like we're all here for a purpose because everything else is here for a purpose. Like the bees make honey that keep us alive and blah, blah. Like everything serves a role, right?
Right.
And so each person would also have to not be junk. Like they'd all have to serve a role.
Well, that depends. So if you're looking, this is just my take on it. If you're
Okay.
looking at things from the big picture, I would say, yes, that's true. But if you were to ask me, is every individual lion that ever existed, has there ever been a lion that we would have been better off without? I would say, probably not. There's probably a couple of those lions that could go fuck themselves and we'd be better off. But I don't think that means we should wipe out all lions altogether. So, our people or humans or whatever, like we're here and we're whatever, useful, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe we're fucking destroying the place, which is probably more likely. But, we're here and we're doing what we do. But are every single one of us ever more beneficial to the world than we are harmful? I don't know about that. I could probably find some people that have probably done more harm than good.
Oh my goodness. If you're listening to this podcast, God never made no junk, people. You're not junk.
Oh no, I don't think people are work. And I think everyone has a potential to be better. I think everyone has, everyone can be worthwhile, worth useful, all that stuff. I just don't think some people choose to be or, are given enough opportunities to be.
I don't know, man. I mean, even like the worst of humanity sometimes is what's needed to bring out the best. Like
Yeah,
people
maybe.
aren't motivated to run outside of their house and protest for human rights when everything's going well, even though okay, not everything's going well, but when things aren't as bad. Like we don't run out and protest the situations in some of the inner city neighborhoods, that are unfair and unjust normally, but then a terrible situation happens and then we do. And so like maybe even if your purpose might be to bring out the best in others, I don't know. Like it all
Yeah.
seems relevant.
But I don't think people are junk. I definitely don't think that.
That's good.
So
That's
I
good
would
to
say
know.
that people are not junk.
Right. So not God never made no junk, but people aren't junk, damn it.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say, and this just could be, over the last 20 years of the world and society, it does seem like we've moved away from a lot of these maybe more Christian God religion type cliches. Like we don't say them. Maybe we don't believe them as much either, but we definitely don't say them as much in a meeting. I'm not hearing people say like God never made no junk. Nah, not that I can picture. I don't know.
Yeah, don't hear that very much.
I gotta pee for sure.
Yeah, I might as well go too.
Yeah. Woohoo! Ah, feels so much better.
Yeah.
Man, there was I had somebody in a support group this week, and they had these Plantronics like Bluetooth headset on.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, it sounded great. I mean, it was like, I guess they just have such noise canceling for their microphone, and I looked them up. They're like $400 fucking dollars, but they were they were incredible. It sounded like a legit podcast microphone. I was like, God damn, that's great. And I was like, if this was how we recorded the rest of our lives, I might actually buy them. But
Yeah. Invest in them.
yeah, we'll go back to in person, and then they'll be useless. But God, couldn't get over how good they sounded. It's like, good Lord. All right, so back into cliches. I don't. It's hard to keep track of time when we're doing this because I don't set any timer. I have no clue how long these things are.
Oh yeah, not either.
Guess we'll do a couple more. Christ, we're still on page 1, Billy. We'll be doing cliches forever. I figured we can, if we did a step 1 week a month, we did a modality 1 week a month, we did a cliche episode 1 week a month, and then that leaves an open week to whatever comes up with. That's almost like, and we could always like not do the cliche episode that month if we had more to talk about.
Right.
It's a nice standby.
Yeah, and it seems like forever, but truthfully, I mean, as long as we've been doing this, you think in the beginning, it was like, man, there's so many things to talk about. We're never going to run out of things to talk about. Now it's like, holy shit, we've covered a lot of things.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there's still a lot we could tap into. I think things like this, like the cliches, the acronyms, if we ever got around to doing like spiritual principles, I think those things are just helpful to like kind of start the conversation. It's like, hey, we sort of have a recovery related topic, and then we just kind of branch off and talk about whatever the fuck we want anyway.
Yeah, which is what I think would be fun about the spiritual principles. That's what I think would be really fun with that shit.
What? Just letting them go off into wherever?
Yeah, like talking about them a little bit and then just letting them go, how they really apply it. I mean, it's easy to talk about stuff in the context of, okay, this is the step. This is what we take from the meaning of this spiritual principle. This is how it applies in our life. That's fine, but that's almost like textbooky. Like, all right, so what does that really look like in your life? What does fucking acceptance look like at your job? What does acceptance look like when you're at home dealing with your kids, baseball coach, like,
right.
what is that shit? How does that play out? And, are you actively thinking like, all right, I'm trying to practice this principle of acceptance in this situation that, because there are times that's what I legitimately have to do with some of these principles. Like I have to wait until I'm home at night and sit down with Jen and have a conversation and be like, all right, so what are we trying to practice here? Like what, what kind of, because in the moment I'm reacting to life. I'm not necessarily thinking through principles.
Right. No, that makes sense. All right, that's interesting. I'm down. We're gonna have to get a comprehensive list of spiritual principles. Like I don't even know how. Is there a limited number, or are they never ending, or what?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
There's 27 of them in the basic text, and then there's more if you look up spiritual principles or spiritual concepts. They have these fucking never-ending lists of some of them. I've looked at them and kind of like, I mean. It's a stretch to say it's a spiritual principle, but
right.
Yeah, that could be more.
All right. Well, I'm down with that. We'll have to start doing more of these things. All right, let's hop back in. Okay, so moving on to the next one, we'll look at humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Have you heard that one before? Is that a regular from Cecil County?
I have. Yes, I've heard that, and I really like that one. I think that's good. I think people have a very bad understanding of humility, and it is an incredibly helpful principle to apply. Definitely in, like we talked about with some of the other things, like the live and let live concepts. Like, it's me having some humility in my life allows me to let other people have an opinion that differs from mine and not feel like I need to be right or they need to be wrong or that they're stupid or that I'm stupid, like
Right.
it's just, I am a person with a brain that thinks and I think this way. And you are a person with a brain that thinks maybe in a different way. And, you know, that's humility. It doesn't mean I need to think that what I say is of any less value than what you say, or that I have to devalue what I say so that you can have a different opinion. Like, no, I can still hold strong to what I believe and be okay with who I am and what I am and allow you to have a different opinion.
Yeah, so I think I really loved this when I first got here for sure, because it was I honestly had no fucking clue what humility was. Nobody was out on the street corner talking about, hey, where are we gonna get this humility today? Right? That was not what we were talking about. And so when I thought of humility, it sounded a lot like humiliation, and that entire concept. And I had been through enough humiliation, I felt like, in my life. I didn't want to be humble in that sense, right? That's what I thought it meant. I just thought it meant I was going to have to be some groveling, subservient person. And so to understand that humility is not thinking less of yourself, I didn't have to think that I was worse then, but thinking of yourself less, right? Just thinking of me less often, because presently when I got here, I was the only concern ever, all day long. And
Right.
that can very well still hold true today if I'm not conscious of it, right? I can just go through my day thinking about how all my day's events affect me, not how any of my decisions will affect those around me. I have to actively work a program daily to consider other people. And so I guess, I don't know. I look at it from that standpoint. I think it's helped me greatly to consider other people and step outside of myself and try to. It's kind of what I come to with the whole, when we talk about the riots and everything going on right now, and people are complaining about looting. Look, I don't personally think looting is a great idea. I don't think burning down establishments and breaking the law is a great idea. I don't, right? But for me to think I have any idea what it's like to be black in America is really not a humble state for me to be in, right? Like, I just don't think I have the ability, especially after some of the education I've gotten on some of these topics and discrimination and how it still goes on. And, it's very prevalent in some places or everywhere. I think it would be really humble of me to think that I have any clue what it's like for people to go through that situation. And so it's not just, I guess when I heard this statement early on, I was like, yeah, thinking of myself less often. That's a great way to look at humility. But now humility has taken on such a larger piece in my life. And it's more about like an honest self-appraisal. Like, hey, these are the areas I don't do so well in. And these are the areas that I usually do pretty well in, right? If you ask me to share a meeting in 3 years at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, I'm going to fucking be there most likely because I do well with that. If you ask me to be patient with my 5-year-old when he's crying about it being bedtime, like it is every fucking night, I don't do so well with it, right? And so humility just means so much more to me today that I almost dislike the saying, because I think it's very limiting to what it doesn't give a full definition of humility, from my understanding.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, humility has become one of my favorite principles, in my life. One that I'm really glad that I found through this process of recovery, because I didn't have it when I was using, and I was probably the opposite of humble. Like you said, I only thought about myself all the time and never thought about how I related to the rest of the world other than how it served me. you know, and I thought I was, smarter than everyone else, deserved more than everyone else, and similarly, like I was a, entitled fucking white guy, with no understanding of race or anything, that had the typical, fucking white guy, ideology a lot of times that's like, oh yeah, if you just listen to the cops and do what they tell you, you won't find yourself getting beat up by the cops and shit like that. Like that was all I knew, oh, you got to respect authority and they'll respect you back, that kind of bullshit that and I just thought that my limited reality was the reality of the world. And, through recovery and through this process of, the steps and learning about humility and learning like my perspective and experience is so limited and narrow minded, most times on most subjects. Like I just have a little piece of some of these things. And so that I can listen to what other people have to say, try to take on new ideas. And similar to you, like since, being in recovery, I've explored a ton of racial history and the social injustices that have went on in this country and a lot of the basically racist practices that have existed over time. And it's quite shocking. Like you almost feel like this can't fucking be really how it is in this country. Like this really can't be true. But again, through this process of understanding humility and like you said, understanding like I can't even begin to fucking fathom what it must be like, to be, even a black male my age in the city, just trying to deal with getting stopped by the cops. I mean, nowadays the truth is if I got pulled over the cops, I'd almost have a fucking attitude of like, fuck what? You know what I mean? Like you can search my car. There's nothing in here I got to worry about. There's no warrants I got to worry about. So just give me your fucking ticket and go on about your day. Like I can almost approach the cops with that attitude, with the expectation that the worst I'm going to get is a fine, maybe get arrested and get bailed out, in a couple of hours. But their reality is completely different than that. You know what I mean? Like the reality of most, Black Americans in the country is there's a ton of fear and they have such a different level of experience with that situation that their attitude could be very different.
Yeah. And I don't want to make that all about race. I mean, I like you, very limited experience and put it out into the world as if it was the understanding of all, right? And just doing some counseling with women and hearing the things women have to go through, like personally, the personal experiences that they relate, and it's fucking across the board. So this isn't like one or two women. This is pretty much every fucking woman goes through the same shit. And what they have to deal with men on a regular basis in being the minority or not the norm or not the powerful having, the power having party is atrocious. And it's like unfathomable. And you hear them talk about these experiences that have happened time and time again in their life. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with people? Right.
Right.
But this is just what we take as a matter of course. And I could tell you for years, I said, women have equal rights. What the fuck? Shut the fuck up. Right. Like so ignorant to that and the humility to be able to say, and this works the other way too, right? I don't want to make this one dimensional. If people are strongly against the rioting, I can't say I completely understand that, but the humility to say, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you my way is right. Do I like my way? Yes. Do I think that I'm pretty thoughtful about subjects and learn as much as I can before I form too much of an opinion? Yeah, I do. But does that mean I'm right? No. Right? Like I can be humble enough to say, hey, this is how I feel, right? I'm going to stand up for the side I think is right, but that doesn't mean that I think other people are wrong or I'm going to live and let you have your opinion that,
Right.
we should focus on the looting here and not the murder.
Right.
I just don't know. And so, yeah, I guess where I would come, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. I think that is a great starting point for understanding that humility is not a negative.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so we'll chalk that one up as we'll keep it. We'll allow it to exist.
We'll allow it to stay.
Yeah. Oh man, here's one, and I guess we'll only do one or two more of these.
You know, that's going to have to be the Facebook post this week. You're going to have all the sayings with like an X mark or a check mark next to them. These are the ones you're allowed to say now, and the ones you got to get rid of.
Does Facebook have one of my favorite features ever? Is that strike through? Do they have that strike through text where you can? I fucking love that. Live life on life's terms. What do you think of that one? Living life on life's terms.
Of course, I've heard that quite a few times. I mean, I guess to me that falls right back into the just another way of saying it is what it is. Like it's life is life. It's going to happen. There's not necessarily a good or bad, or you just roll with it.
I almost take live life on life's terms to be what you were talking about earlier as like the atheist or agnostic version of let go and let God. Like life on life's terms. Yeah, it is what it is. Fuck it. Like this is life's terms. That's what it gives you.
So, I might even have used this at times. I mean, I think it's a practical saying. I think it's helpful.
So, okay, in a situation where you wouldn't say let go and let God, what were we talking about for that? Like the death of a loved one or applying for a job?
Yeah.
Do you feel like where you couldn't say let go and let God there, you would be able to say, it's life on life's terms? Like, I don't know if I'd say that to somebody who just lost a close loved one.
Yeah, but ideology wise, it fits.
Right. Like, oh man, stop living in that optional misery you got over there. This is life on life's terms.
You and your optional misery. Yeah, I would say. I mean, I agree with what you said. I don't know that I would say it, but it would fit. That would fit.
On life's terms. I like that it doesn't put any qualifying judgment on it. Right? It's not a good or a bad or or a for you or against you. It's just life's terms. Right?
Just as an addict, I tend to think things should be the way that I want them to be,
Yes.
And that old saying, like, if everything was exactly the way I thought it should be, then we'd all be happy and shit would be perfect, and then my life would be great.
Is that a cliche?
Yeah, it should be.
Because I believe in that one.
Right. And that, that line of thinking, that way of thinking is what gets me into trouble all the time. Like life is going to happen. It's going to be how it is. And, it's life's terms, not my terms. It's not life according to Billy,
Yeah, it does. It takes the onus off of anything. Like I tend to take things personally, and I think a lot of us do. And that's why that's kind of a question in one of our steps. And so it takes the onus off of something being out to get me. Nobody's coming after me or trying to make my life miserable. It's like, look, this is just life's terms, right? Life's terms of agreement. If you ever read them, because nobody ever reads the fucking terms and conditions, right? If you would have ever read them, they say everybody's going to have some sucky times and these are yours. Like, it's just life's terms, bro. And I like that it makes it very impersonal. I think that's helpful for a lot of us to just not be so personal. Okay, life's terms. It's shitty.
Right. Bad shit happens to everybody. You got get your Yep, I like that one.
So now see, bad shit happens to now you don't maybe not like it.
Yeah.
That fast it went from this is useful to man, that's not compassionate. Huh. I don't know. I guess we can keep it because it makes it impersonal, but we gotta temper that with some compassion too, I think.
Oh yeah. You gotta say it in a very compassionate way. Man, it's just life on life's terms. Ugh.
Yeah. Life's terms are tough.
Yeah.
Okay, let's you can't think your way into better living. You have to live your way into better thinking. Ooh, I think this is a good one to wrap on. This is a What do you think
Sorry,
about that one?
I just missed that. My wife interrupted me, told her there's a snake she needs me to catch, but I told her I'll be a couple more minutes. I
Oh my god, a snake. I want to come
don't
catch
think
it.
it's in the house. Maybe it is in the house. I don't know. So
Hopefully
I
it's
don't have
not in
to
the
much
toilet.
longer before everyone's going to be in the room here with me. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. What was that saying?
You can't think your way into better living. You have to live your way into better thinking.
Yeah, so this is one that when I hear it, it always confuses the shit out of me and I get lost and I don't know what they're talking about. It's too many words.
You can't think your way into better living. You have to live your way into better thinking. And so
And I probably get it backwards once or twice when I try to say it.
right, I do think that I remember this being very useful to hear at some points in time because I like to, like we do now, pontificate and thoroughly, break down everything and think too much about it. And oh man, how can I get better and show up for work like I couldn't figure out how to show up for work on time every day by thinking about it. Like I had to live it. I had to get up one day. I had to, just for today or one day at a time, get up and show up for work on time. And then the next day, the same, one day at a time, get up and show up for work on time. And through that process, I started to believe in getting up and showing up for work on time because it felt good. Right? Like I guess it's kind of the opposite of the instant gratification. It's like the way to combat the need for instant gratification is that I can get up and go mow the grass today, or I can sit here and eat chocolate chip cookies. Well, sitting here and eating chocolate chip cookies feels better. Right? And I can't think my way into going mowing the grass. But yet, if I go and mow the grass, over time, I'm going to live my way into realizing that I feel better eating chocolate chip cookies after the grass is mowed because I've accomplished something.
But doesn't that contradict the earlier thing about like all your feelings come from thoughts? Like, isn't that this is almost saying the opposite. This is almost saying you do the actions and the thoughts will follow. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. So I think the feelings are based on a thought. The thought is mowing the grass in the heat's going to suck balls, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where the feeling of wanting to avoid it comes from. And I just don't think we're able to switch our line of thinking by thinking about it. I think we have to live and see the results of that life in order for the thought to change. I get what you're saying. It does
Yeah.
seem like the opposite way to treat it, but I don't think it
I will
necessarily.
say, like, I generally believe that saying when it comes to things like having like self-worth or self-esteem, like when I was out using and hurting people and living a shitty way, like I felt like a piece of shit and I should have because I wasn't living right. You know what I mean? I was living in a way that was unproductive and harmful to people and hurt people that I loved and cared about. And so, I couldn't just think my way out of that. Like it took a lot of, like, say, like the positive actions of like, stop stealing from people, stop lying to the people I love, stop borrowing money all the time that I had no intentions of paying back, and I had to start, showing up for family things and being a productive member of society and having a job. And when I was able to do those things, then those feelings of like, hey, I am a worthwhile person. Hey, I have something to offer the world. Hey, I can be, my life has meaning and purpose. Like those things came after the actions.
I'm trying to think of a time. I wonder if this ties into knowing better wasn't our solution, right? I come to that a lot. I like to remind myself because I get annoyed with myself that I know better and I still do things that aren't, useful for my life. And so
Yeah.
I like to come back to knowing better was like I knew I was not a registered nurse and should not be putting a needle into my vein, right? Like I knew this full of some chemical that I just bought of a guy on the corner who looked pretty shady. Like, this is a bad idea. I had that idea already, but knowing better wasn't enough for me. And so I wonder if that has something to do with not being able to think my way into better living, because knowing better is just not my solution. Like, I don't,
Right.
maybe I need to live it in order to get a better understanding, or
Well, or that it takes action. You know what I mean? Like, just thinking about it doesn't help anything. Yeah, I mean, thinking about it's okay, but it's the actual action behind it that makes it meaningful.
I was
You know?
definitely thinking about getting clean and doing better tomorrow every day that
Right.
I used.
Right.
And I never lived any better, but I
Yeah,
thought
right.
about it a
It didn't
lot.
change anything when I just sat around thinking about it. It didn't change until I actually, and then once I got clean and started living that way, it was like, oh yeah, I don't want to use anymore. You know?
Right, right. Interesting. So that kind of brings me to something I was just thinking this morning. Like, I woke up this morning and I just looked over at my little nightstand and I was like, God, I want to like hit a vape or a cigarette or something, right? And now, so I haven't smoked for 5 years and I haven't vaped since Thanksgiving last year. So what's that, like 7 months or something?
Yeah.
And it's not, there's so few moments in my life nowadays that I would ever think that like using alcohol/drugs would be a good idea. Like, that doesn't generally come across as like, man, I wish I could add that back in my life, right? Like, I'm kind of pretty happy that I don't have that in my life. And so it's been like 7 months and I'm like, why the fuck do I wake up and still want to and that's what I was thinking after I said I want, my thought was I wish I had a vape to hit. And I was like, but I don't like the fact that I used to be stuck hitting it all the time. Like, most of the times I had to hit the vape, I was not happy with it. I just want to be able to use it here and there when I want to be able to use it, which is not my life. Like, that's not who
Right.
I am. I don't get to use vapes when I want to. Like, I get stuck in doing them all the time. So I can't understand for the life of me why I guess drugs felt easier to just be done with once I was done with them. And now it's like, I think about going back to vaping more than I ever thought about using, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's the same.
I think it's easier to minimize the harm, you know.
Mm,
It's like it's not so obvious, it's not as right in your face. It seems more minimal, you know what I mean? It's easier to justify than use, at least for me, you know, the damage from using was pretty obvious. I mean, you're
mm.
not going to go to jail from vaping, you know, you're not going to probably steal all the money out of the family bank account to vape, you know, like, you know, it's like it seems fairly, I mean, it's annoying, it's a mild annoyance, and obviously there's health impacts, or well, I don't know,
We
that's
think.
debatable, but
Right.
yeah, you know, there potentially is health, but it's so much more minimal than, you know, using, um, with the obvious consequences. But I'll say this: so you're doing exactly that. You are living your way into better thinking, because by not vaping for the past 7 months, you gave yourself the freedom or the ability to make a choice. You know what I mean? You weren't just a slave to the choice. It wasn't like that vape was laying there. You've been vaping every day. You want a vape, so you lean over and grab it and do it without even thinking about it. You know, in this case, you've lived your way into a better way of thinking, where you can start weighing out the pros and the cons and weighing out, hey, is this worth it? Is this something I want to do? I think for today I won't do it. But
Yeah.
there you go. You've just lived your way into better thinking.
Just for today, one day at a time. the the action of having it the few times I would actually want to do it has not outweighed like all the times I won't want to do it that I'll be stuck with it. And so that's
Right.
where you're right. I'm trying to live my way into better thinking. It's fucking annoying, right? Because I'll eat dinner and then so it used to be, if you're a smoker or a vapor or whatever, after you eat, when you wake up, when you go to sleep, like these are these normal times, right? And so I guess I was used to this other flavor in my mouth after I ate. And so I'll eat dinner and then I'll probably have like another plate, or at least a half a plate. And then I'll have like some little sweet small thing like a cookie or something. And then I'll drink a coffee. and then I'll be like, oh, let me chew a piece of gum. I'm like, it's like, when do I stop putting different flavors in my mouth to finally feel done? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did not even make it through the first goddamn page. Wow, we're a little like 2/3 of the way through, and so there's 6 pages of. Oh man, and the last couple of pages aren't even double spaced. Wow, so that's great. We'll have a whole lot of cliche episodes. I don't know if we'll call them part ones or chapter ones or whatever, but
Yeah.
we'll figure
Maybe
that out.
we can limit it too. We can look at ones that are like really just things you would hear in like a 12-step meeting. Because there's some cliches you're going to hear them out on the road, and you're going to hear them, at work. Somebody's going to spout them out sometimes, but
It's hard to say anymore.
yeah.
I feel like some of the 12-step ones have kind of like made their way out into the world now. And so I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed talking about them today. I guess if we have a shit ton of them. I don't know. I was thinking people would give their feedback and give us their favorite ones, and maybe they can do that, but they're probably already on this list. Maybe not.
Yeah.
So I guess in wrapping, we have a Facebook page now, so you can seek that out if you so desire to. And that'll be a place to share our podcast. Do you got any other thoughts for this week?
No, I'm just preparing to go catch a snake, so wish me luck. I don't get bit by a snake. This will be the second snake I rescued in a week.
Do you have to constantly hear about how they might be poisonous? I feel like that's all I hear about with snakes.
No, who tells you they might be? I mean, I know a lot about snakes. I've had snakes as pets and things like that. So I tend to know most snakes. And so I know which ones are poisonous. There are ways to tell which ones are poisonous, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I looked up the head shape or whatever, but I don't really pay attention. Like if I see a snake, I try to catch it.
You look at the eyes, that's it.
I've never got close enough to stare at a snake's eyes.
If you're around Maryland, there's not very many poisonous ones. There's a few, but not many.
That's what I always say. My wife is always like, you don't know if it's poisonous or not. And I'm like, it's like fucking 6 inches long, bro. And she's like, but they're the ones that kill you because they don't know how to limit the poison. I'm like, what the fuck ever? I don't know. I've just never. She seems overly concerned about poisonous snakes.
It's not a thing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
But I mean, in Maryland, how many poisonous snake deaths do you think we have a year?
I mean, generally, my goal is to not get bit, whether I'm catching the snake or not. So I don't really give a fuck what it is. I'm not trying to get bit.
Right.
All right. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Everybody stay safe out there. Do what you need to do for your recovery this week, and we will see you next week.